Chapter 21-25. Had Zhang Sun Wuk and the Zhang Sun family lost their minds? Just as many people in the city were preparing to evacuate, they saw a strange scene. Zhang Sun Wuk had actually chopped off his own hand. 3 of the remaining people tumbled in midair, while 7 of them immediately flew down and sat cross-legged on the ground, motionless. A few of them were still shivering, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. What was going on? A moment ago, the 11 of them were chasing after Luli. How come the tables were turned? Luli didn't do anything. Had they lost their minds? Ah! One of the 3 tumbling in midair cried out in pain. He smashed into a castle on the ground. After he smashed the castle, he rushed up again. Then, he turned into a skeleton in a speed visible to the naked eye. The other one in midair could not stand it any longer. Soon, he turned into a skeleton and fell to the ground. Finally, they found the culprit with psychic power. There were many insects. They were dark and their fangs were dark as well. They were gnawing on the 2 young men's bones. Crack, crack, the sound of bones being gnawed was not loud. But to people's ears, it sounded like demons were grinding their teeth. Everyone in the city felt their blood run cold. Hidden weapons, someone came to his senses and shouted in surprise. Many turned to Luli with fear in their eyes. Just now, there were insects hidden in the hidden weapons. Luli released some random attacks and the tables were turned. Whoosh! King of Venomous Worms flew back and Luli put it away. Now that Zhang Sun Wuk had noticed, it was pointless to let King of Venomous Worms attack. Maybe King of Venomous Worms would be killed by Zhang Sun Wuk. However, the Void Worms didn't return. Instead, they flew towards the other young men. Wherever the Void Worms passed, the people nearby would immediately flee in terror. They were afraid that the worms would get close to them. At that time, they would be gnawed to the point that not even their bones would remain. Bang! The 3rd young man fell to the ground and turned into a skeleton. The other 7 could suppress the worms of the void. That being said, if the Zhang Sun family didn't do anything, they would end up as skeletons as well. Good! Luli was satisfied. The worms of the void were much stronger after the evolution. The 10 warriors were at the later stage of the 3rd calamity, elites trained by the Zhang Sun family. The fact that the worms of the void could kill 3 of them in an instant was proof that the worms of the void were powerful. Watch my hidden weapon! Seeing that Zhang Sun Wuk was about to come over again, Luli threw out a dagger. How could Zhang Sun Wuk block it? He had already lost an arm, so he didn't want to lose another one. Elders, hurry up and protect them! Zhang Sun Wuk shouted. 3 people had already died, and he didn't want the remaining 7 to die. These 10 people were the top geniuses of the Zhang Sun clan. If all of them died, he wouldn't know how to face his father and the elders of the clan. Watch my hidden weapon! Seeing that the 2 old men were about to fly over, Luli threw out some weapons. At the same time, he threw out 7 weapons and aimed at the 7 men sitting with their legs crossed. Seeing the 7 weapons coming, the 7 were frightened. They could barely contain the worms of the void inside them. If Luli were to let out more worms, they would be in a worse state. One of them tried to dodge out of instinct, so he flew up, trying to avoid Luli's hidden weapon. However, as soon as he moved, the worms of the void inside him could no longer be contained. He cried out in pain in midair and rolled around. Once he could not contain the worms of the void, what awaited him would be death. Whoosh! Some of them used divine energy to knock away the weapons Luli threw. The weapons were knocked away easily, but hundreds of worms of the void flew out from the weapons, which shocked everyone. What? Zhang Sun Wuk noticed a caterpillar flew out from one of the weapons. It was the one that attacked him. Shocked, Zhang Sun Wuk shouted, "Zhang Sun Tang, watch out!" But it was too late. King of Venomous Worms flew over. This time, it flew to the back of the young man's head. King of Venomous Worms bit open a hole and crawled in. That young man fell to the ground with a bang. Blood flowed out from his eyes, nose, mouth, and mouth. Soon, he breathed no more. Patriarchs! Zhang Sun Wuk made up his mind. He made up his mind and said, "Please take Lu Li down." The two patriarchs were going to the seven. They looked at each other with hesitation. If they were to attack Lu Li, they would be violating the rules of the Asmodean family. If the Asmodean family went to the Zhangsun family, the Zhangsun family would be in big trouble. "Do it!" Zhang Sun Wuk shouted. "I will take all the responsibility. This is an order." As soon as Zhang Sun Wuk finished his words, the two patriarchs were filled with killing intent. Even though they were patriarchs of the Zhangsun family, their statuses were lower than Zhang Sun Wuk's. This time, the family master had told them to follow Zhang Sun Wuk's orders. The two patriarchs dashed toward Lu Li from the left and the right. How fast could two warriors at the peak of the third tribulation be? Lu Li could not dodge at all. Buzzing, from Lu Li's sacred mountain, countless worms of the void flew out toward the two patriarchs. But how could the worms of the void stop the two patriarchs when they were exerting their full strength? One of the patriarchs took out a flag. The flag was unfurled and thousands of worms of the void were smashed away. The other warrior dashed out from the worms of the void in a blur and arrived in front of Lu Li. Lu Li knew he could not dodge. He tried his best to mobilize the energy in his body and smashed at the patriarch. He was poisoned and his physical strength was reduced. He could only exert half of his strength in this punch. That patriarch snorted. His hand glowed. Surges of divine energy gathered on his fist and then expanded. The divine energy landed on Lu Li's fist. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Li's fist was already injured. At this moment it was completely broken. One of his hands was broken. Lu Li's physical body was strong and yet his arm was broken in one move. His hand was shattered as well. It was not hard to imagine how powerful this patriarch was. "I still have a long way to go to the peak of the third tribulation," Lu Li sighed to himself. He was going to die here today. After he was taken down by the two patriarchs, Zhang Sun Wuk would kill him in person. Gan Lin had informed the Axe Demon. The Axe Demon must be teleporting over by now. That being said, there was still some distance between them and the Omen Island. It would take some time for the portal to be opened. "Kill him!" Zhang Sun Wuk didn't do it himself. Instead, he shouted, "Patriarch Che, kill him! I will take all the responsibility." The patriarch who injured Lu Li was hesitating. Zhang Sun Wuk would take all the responsibility? He was afraid that he would be the scapegoat if something went wrong. But since Zhang Sun Wuk had said so, the patriarch would have a hard time in the Zhang Sun family if he didn't carry out the order. Go to hell. Chapter 21-26. Boom! Another move. Lu Li was smashed away. This time, he didn't even have a pair of wings. His body was badly mutilated. A warrior at the peak of the third tribulation was horrifying. Lu Li was poisoned and his physical defense was weakened. It was already surprising that he could survive the attack from a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation. Lu Li! Gan Lin flew over, trying to help, but he was smashed away by Zhang Sun Wuk. Gan Lin had no choice but to shout, "Old dogs of the Zhang Sun family, if you dare to kill Lu Li, our Lord will kill your entire family." Two warriors at the peak of the third tribulation were rushing toward Lu Li. One of them slowed down. Since the other one was the one doing the work, he might as well let him kill Lu Li. Patriarch Che, who had just made a move, wanted to kill Lu Li again. But he hesitated on hearing this. The Asmodean was too famous. Patriarch Che had his concerns. "Zhang Sun Wuk, let's go to hell together." Lu Li, who was smashed into the ruins of a castle, dashed out. He forced his wings to grow again and dashed toward Zhang Sun Wuk like an arrow. Patriarch Che, who was at the peak of the third tribulation, was taken aback. He flew over quickly and released divine energy. But he didn't use his full strength. He moved closer to Lu Li quickly. He wanted to take Lu Li down and let Zhang Sun Wuk do it. In this way, if the Asmodean came to him in the future, his punishment would be less severe. Whoosh! Luli was seriously injured and slowed down. Soon, the warrior at the peak of the third tribulation caught up with him. He smashed at Luli's back with one fist and reached for Luli's head with the other. Ha ha! Luli suddenly turned around and smiled at the warrior at the peak of the third tribulation. Because of the blood on his face, Luli's smile was quite strange. He spread his wings and a white airstream appeared on his hand. He slapped at the warrior at the peak of the third tribulation. The warrior at the peak of the third tribulation trembled. He had a bad feeling, but Luli was too close. He flew over immediately. The warrior made up his mind to gather divine energy outside his fist and smashed at Luli. Whoosh! Several streaks of white airstream flew over and entered the warrior's body. At the same time, the surging energy of the warrior at the peak of the third tribulation landed on Luli. Boom! Luli was blown away again. This time it was worse. Half of his shoulder was exposed and many bones were broken. Blood dyed the night sky red like a blooming azalea. Not good. A trembling voice rang out, and fear appeared in the eyes of the peak of the third tribulation. His body swayed in the air, and then he fell down in a crooked manner, smashing a large hole in a castle. Old Che, what's wrong? The other peak third tribulation cultivator was startled and hurriedly flew down. When his divine sense locked onto Elder Che, his expression changed drastically and he exclaimed, "Chaotic energy!" This. Countless people scanned Elder Che with their divine senses, and expressions of shock appeared on their faces. Elder Che's life force was gradually disappearing, and in the blink of an eye, he had become a corpse. His eyes were wide open, and he had died with a grievance. Chaos Chi. Many people remembered Yun Zhantian's death when they were in the city of chaos. Looking at Patriarch Che's state of death, many people no longer had any doubt. Luli could control chaotic energy and use it to kill enemies. When Luli killed Yun Zhantian, many people still had some doubt. They thought it was the Asmodean who killed him in secret. Now, nobody dared to question this anymore. The fact that Luli could kill a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation had been verified. Whoosh! Luli flew out from the ruins again. He was badly injured, covered in blood, and it was a miserable sight. But nobody doubted his abilities anymore. Just now, he was in such a state, and yet he could kill a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation in one move. Luli released his dragon wings by force. He had done that for 3 times in a row, and his face was pale. He flew toward Zhang Sun Wuk again, his eyes filled with killing intent. Just now, he was creating a diversion. His target was Patriarch Che, but this time, he really wanted to kill Zhang Sun Wuk. He had already killed Zhang Sun Ryu. He didn't mind another Zhang Sun Wuk. For him, there was no force that he couldn't afford to offend. Others were trying to kill him. Should he just wait for death? Seeing Luli coming, Zhang Sun Wuk's expressions changed. He stepped back at once. Patriarch Che's death scared Zhang Sun Wuk. Luli could kill a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation. Killing Zhang Sun Wuk wouldn't be difficult. Whoosh! Another patriarch of the Zhang Sun family came quickly. He slapped Luli away from the distance. He dared not to let Luli kill Zhang Sun Wuk in front of him. Patriarch Lu, kill Luli! Zhang Sun Wuk shouted. Another 3 young men sitting on the ground died. Now there were only 3 left. If things went badly, all of them might die. The Zhang Sun family had suffered a great loss today. How could he be satisfied without killing Luli? Patriarch Lu was hesitating. Just now, he didn't make the first move. He let Patriarch Che do it because he was worried about the Asmodean's revenge. Now that Patriarch Che had died in Luli's hands, Patriarch Lu was even more hesitant. What if Luli's dying counterattack could kill him as well? Buzzing, right at that moment, a space portal suddenly opened in midair, which made everyone in the city nervous. Who came at such a critical moment? Those that could open space portals were all powerful warriors of major families. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One powerful warrior after another flew out from the space portal. There were more than a dozen of them. All of them were warriors of the Third Tribulation, and 3 of them were at the peak of the Third Tribulation. Third Uncle. Zhang Sun Wuk was overjoyed. He shouted, "Third Uncle, Ryu is killed by Lu Li. Patriarch Che and Zhang Sun Tang are all killed by Lu Li. Kill Lu Li and avenge Ryu and the others." Ryu. A middle-aged man in a splendid robe who looked like Zhang Sun Wuk showed sorrow. He glanced over and soon, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Finally, he looked at Lu Li and shouted coldly, "Good, good. How dare you kill so many warriors of the Zhangsun family? Lu Li, you are bold. Men, do it. Remove all the bones in his body one by one." Whoosh! The more than a dozen warriors spread out and dashed toward Lu Li. Clearly, the middle-aged man in the splendid robe enjoyed a high status in the Zhangsun family. Nobody dared to question his orders. Right at that moment, a cold snort came from above the sky. It was not loud, but it struck everyone in the city like a clap of thunder. Then, the clouds and wind surged. In the dark sky, a ray of golden light suddenly came out. Amidst the astonished stares, a beautiful golden hand reached down from the sky. Hiss, hiss, everyone looked at the golden palm and their souls were trembling. Even the souls of the elders at the peak of the Third Tribulation of the Heavenly Music Palace were trembling. They felt that this hand was like the hand of a true god, capable of crushing everything. That beautiful big hand quickly grabbed down and instantly grabbed Zhang Sun Wuk's third uncle's body. Zhang Sun Wuk's third uncle was at the peak of the Third Tribulation realm, but after he was grabbed by that beautiful hand, his entire body turned into dust like a clay sculpture. Not even his bones remained. Chapter 21-27. Greetings, Lord. Gon Lin and the 2 old warriors of the Third Tribulation knelt down. The confused people in the city finally came back to their senses. To be able to release such a powerful golden hand and easily crush a peak Third Tribulation cultivator, only a great demon king could have such combat prowess. In terms of courage, there was no one else apart from the demon king that could crush a warrior at the peak of the Third Tribulation of the Zhangsun family, let alone the demon king. Plop! Many low-level warriors knelt down. For one, they were scared, and for another, they were in awe and admiration. They didn't even have the chance to worship such a man. The beautiful hand was gone. The sky returned to calmness as if the hand had never been there. More than a dozen warriors of the Zhangsun family were running toward Lu Li. They were not far away from him now, but none of them dared to move. Lu Li was right in front of them. They could kill him easily. The hand of the demon king was gone. But who dared to move? Third uncle. Zhang Sun Wuk shouted in sorrow. He didn't dare to say anything. Out of instinct, he wanted to fly over only to realize that his third uncle's body was gone. There was nothing but a mist of blood floating in the air. He was filled with regret and hatred. His third uncle was talking to a big family nearby. If Zhang Sun Wuk hadn't crushed the jade talisman to inform the family, his third uncle wouldn't have died. Let's go. Zhang Sun Wuk made up his mind. He waved his hand and asked someone to take away the bodies of the 3 young men and Zhang Sun Ryu. Zhang Sun Wuk was mad, but he did not lose his mind. If the Demon King could do it once, he could do it again. If he were to attack again, everyone would probably die. Zhang Sun Wuk and the others left by teleportation formation. As soon as they left, the atmosphere in the city was not as depressing as before. But many people still felt it was hard to breathe. Some were trembling. Maybe it was because of nervousness or the excitement of seeing such a big fight. Alas! Lu Li climbed up from the ground and cupped his fists to the sky. He was not secretly happy that he had escaped death. Instead, he felt humiliated. His face was gloomy. He was not a kid anymore. On several occasions, he was in fatal danger and he needed the Demon King to help him out. This made him feel ashamed and humiliated. He felt he had let down the Demon King's love. "I'll go into seclusion after I return." Luli made up his mind. He needed to be more powerful. Otherwise, something like this might happen again. He couldn't rely on the great Demon King to help him every time. Xiao. Gon Lin came with 2 old men. Gon Lin took Luli away and rushed into a manor. Looking at Luli, who was covered in blood, Gon Lin sighed and said, "Luli, I am sorry. We are not capable enough to let you suffer alone." It's none of your business." Luli forced a smile and shook his head. Then he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Things had calmed down, but the city was not. News of the incident spread to the second heaven at an extremely fast speed. The great Demon King and the Zhangsun clan were at odds. It would be hard for such a huge matter not to spread quickly. Luli had killed Zhangsun Ryu. Warriors of the Zhangsun family were driven mad. They wanted to kill Luli. The young couldn't be killed, so the elders took action. In the end, Zhangsun family's battle hall master Zhangsun Jie came, but he was killed by the great Demon King with a single palm strike. Who was right and who was wrong? How come Zhangsun Ryu was naked when she died? Luli was wearing a bathrobe as well. Did he and Zhangsun Ryu have an illicit relationship? How did the great Demon King come so quickly? Was it because she was nearby, or was it an attack she released from the Omen Island? Of course, people chose to believe the former explanation. The great Demon King couldn't have released a skill from the Omen Island to crush Zhangsun Jie. The Omen Island was hundreds of millions of miles away from the Heavenly Sound Island. Not even warriors of the 4th or 5th tribulation could do that. There were too many questions and too many topics to talk about. Therefore, the news spread quickly. The entire second heaven was in an uproar. Scouts from many forces swarmed toward the Sky Heart Island where the Zhangsun family was at. They wanted to see if the Zhangsun family would take action. The most powerful warrior of the second heaven was challenging the most powerful force of the second heaven. If an all-out war were to break out, no matter who won, the situation of the entire second heaven would be affected. Even though the Zhangsun family hadn't taken action yet, the great Demon King's prestige was growing. The Zhangsun family had a backer at the third heaven. The great Demon King had already offended Phoenix Queen. How could she offend the Zhangsun family as well? Did she really think that the great forces of the third heaven would not dare to send people down to the lower realm? 3 days later, the family master of the Zhangsun family said in person, Luli had killed Zhangsun Ryu and the others for no reason. He hoped that the Omen Island could give him an explanation. If there was no explanation in a month, the Zhangsun family would take actions to avenge Zhangsun Ryu and the others. The announcement of the Zhangsun family didn't mention that the Asmodean Lord had killed Zhangsun Qi. It only mentioned that Luli had killed Zhangsun Ryu and the others. The words were not too harsh, but they had expressed a certain attitude. The Zhangsun family hoped that the Asmodean Lord would hand over Luli and the matter would be over. If Luli was not handed over, the Zhangsun family would not hesitate to fight. Would the great Demon King hand over Luli? This was obviously impossible. Otherwise, the great Demon King wouldn't have killed Zhangsun Jie. Therefore, after the Zhangsun family sent out the announcement, the entire second heaven was immediately shaken. Were the Zhangsun clan and the great Demon King finally going to fight head-on? Was the Zhangsun family's old bastard going to come out of seclusion? Would the Zhangsun family ask powerful warriors of the third heaven to take action? The atmosphere of the entire second heaven was depressed. Recently, all the forces were restraining their people from going out and causing trouble. They could not afford to have any big conflicts during this time. Even some playboys were locked up for fear that they would go out and cause trouble. Luli was still at the Heaven Music City. The Palace of Heaven Music sent over many powerful warriors to protect him, for fear that something might happen to him. The master of the Palace of Heaven Music went to the Omen Island in person to apologize to the great Demon King. After all, it was the Zhangsun family that started a fight in the city, but the Palace of Heaven Music didn't do anything to protect Lu Li. This was their fault. The Demon King didn't meet with the master of the Palace of Heaven Music. Axe Demon did, but he didn't explain clearly what the great Demon King wanted. The master of the Palace of Heaven Music came back with uneasiness. The Axe Demon came over and picked up Lu Li, Gon Lin and the others who had recovered a little. What happened to Lu Li was not sent back to the Cloud Mountain. After Lu Li woke up, he stayed at the heavenly Asmodean city to tend to his wound. He asked Axe Demon to go to the Cloud Mountain to block the news so that the Lu family wouldn't be worried. After half a month of rest, Lu Li's wounds had recovered a lot. That being said, the toxins in his body were still there. He still couldn't use his divine energy and his physical strength was suppressed. Lu Li asked Axe Demon to take him to the great Demon King. Lu Li knew about the announcement from the Zhangsun family. He wanted to ask the great Demon King. If he couldn't handle it, he would go to the Zhangsun family by himself. Nobody can threaten me at the second heaven. Chapter 21-28. Is the Zhangsun family here for the Demon Lord? Lu Li had been thinking about this for days, but he still could not figure it out. Zhang Sunryu was trying to recruit him, and she was willing to sacrifice herself in order to do so. If she wanted to pick a fight with the Demon Lord, she could just mobilize powerful warriors to attack the Omen Island. Why did she have to go through so much trouble? Why did she have to sacrifice a young lady? Since he could not figure it out, Lu Li stopped thinking about it. Since the Demon Lord said that she could deal with the Zhangsun family, Lu Li stopped worrying about the outside world. The Demon Lord would not speak without thinking. She had so many followers at the Omen Island. She would not joke about this. Lu Li began to focus on detoxifying the poison. He must have smelled the incense. He could feel some strange energy in his body. The energy filled his body and suppressed the energy inside. There was more of this energy outside the elixir that sealed his divine energy. Since the Demon Lord told him to do it himself, then there must be a way. Lu Li cultivated and paid no attention to the outside world. He began to study the poison in his body, trying to find a way to turn it into energy for himself. The atmosphere outside was getting more and more serious. It had been 20 days and the Demon Lord had not responded. It was a silent slap on the face of the Zhangsun family. The Zhangsun family did nothing either. Scouts from other forces noticed that the Omen Island was under martial law. None of the scouts from outside could get in, and those hiding on the island were asked to come out. It meant that the Zhangsun family was making preparations in secret. The most powerful force in the second heaven must take action since they had said so. Otherwise, they would lose their trust in the world and their prestige would be tarnished. Scouts outside the island noticed that the teleportation formations on the island were being activated. Many teleportation formations glowed. They must be long-distance teleportation formations. There seemed to be some fluctuations in space. Maybe many space gates were opened as the 1-month deadline approached. The forces in the second heaven were getting more and more nervous. This battle had affected all the forces and families. The defeat of the Zhangsun family or the Omen Island would affect the entire situation of the second heaven. The Fu family of the Black Flame Palace of the Saint Origin Palace and the Black Flame Palace were itching for action. If the Demon Lord was defeated, their powerful warriors would rush to the Omen Island at once. Many forces that had grudges against the Heavenly Devil Island were also making preparations in secret. Soon, a month passed by. The Zhangsun family sent another approval. Since the Omen Island didn't give any response, the Zhangsun family decided to go to the Omen Island and kill Lu Li to avenge Zhang Sunryu and the others. The Zhangsun family had drawn their swords. Countless space gates opened, and the experts of the Zhangsun family were teleported over. They didn't go directly to the demonic island, but to the Raging Flame Island. Raging Flames Island had been taken over by a few medium-sized forces, and there were only a few Third Tribulation experts left. The Zhangsun family's experts were directly teleported over, and the people here didn't even dare to let out a fart. Not to mention that the Zhangsun family had so many experts, even a peak Third Tribulation expert could sweep through the entire Raging Flame Island. The experts of the Zhangsun family were continuously teleported over. Almost all of them had come out. The army had mobilized more than 100,000 people, and all of them were Second Tribulation warriors. The number of Third Tribulation warriors had reached more than 200. Once again, the Zhangsun family demonstrated their strength as the most powerful force in the Second Heaven. 11 warriors at the peak of the Third Tribulation had come. The patriarch of the Zhangsun family and the family patriarch of the Zhangsun family, Zhangsun Tianyao, had come in person. Many scouts were sent to the Raging Flame Island. Every force had sent over scouts. This fight was so important that every force must know the result as soon as possible. Many forces not only sent scouts, but their patriarchs and family patriarchs were here as well. But they didn't come here. Instead, they found places to hide in the distance so that they could learn the situation in time. The Omen Island was in an uproar. Many powerful warriors gathered at the Omen City to ask for permission to fight. Warriors of the Omen Island were confident because they had never been defeated when the Demon King led them to battle. This time, warriors of the Omen Island couldn't stand it when the Zhangsun family was at their doorstep. The Demon King didn't give any orders. He didn't intend to take the initiative. It was just that Axe Demon gave an order for all warriors above the Second Tribulation to gather at the Omen City, ready to fight at any time. Axe Demon was the Demon King's most powerful warrior. His order represented the Demon King. At that moment, countless martial artists from the entire Heavenly Devil Island gathered towards Heavenly Devil City. Those people weren't afraid at all. Instead, they were all extremely excited. Being able to fight alongside the great Demon King was the glory of all the Heavenly Devil Islanders. 3 days later, the people of the Zhangsun family moved out. More than 200 Third Tribulation powerhouses led an army of more than 100,000 to officially attack the Heavenly Devil Island. More than 100,000 people rode on thousands of warships. They covered the sky, and the aura released by the powerhouses caused the surrounding space to become especially heavy and oppressive. After the people of the Zhangsun family entered the Heavenly Devil Island, the great Demon King still didn't come out. He just sent an order. The martial artists of the Zhangsun family were to scatter along the way. Don't fight with the people of the Zhangsun family, and let the Zhangsun family's army enter the Heavenly Devil City. After the order was passed down, the Zhangsun family's army didn't encounter any attacks along the way. The Zhangsun family's family head didn't let the army spread out to attack. Instead, he led the army straight to Heavenly Devil City. If they didn't kill the great Demon King, even if they conquered the entire Heavenly Devil Island, it would be meaningless. As long as they killed the great Demon King, the entire Heavenly Devil Island would be theirs. Countless families' scouts followed the Zhangsun family's army in. They spread the news of the island, and many great powers became bewildered. Why didn't the great Demon King take the initiative to attack? Could it be that he had made some arrangements in Heavenly Devil City? Did he want to borrow the power of the divine inscriptions and the geographical advantage to obstruct the Zhangsun family's army? Many experts wanted to enter the Heavenly Devil Island to watch the battle, but when they thought of the great Demon King's rules, if they entered and the Zhangsun family was defeated, they would most probably be trapped inside, unable to come out. 2 days later, the Zhangsun family's army arrived at Heavenly Devil City. The great Demon King finally appeared. He was clad in black battle armor and wore a Devil King mask, wielding a Devil King spear in his hand. "My lord is mighty, my lord is mighty." The hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the city immediately knelt down and roared. Their faces were filled with worship. They believed that as long as they followed this woman, they would be able to tear apart any enemies that stood in their way. Attack, kill all the invaders this time around. The great demon king brandished his long spear and took the lead to rush out. Like a sharp sword, he pierced into the midst of the experts of the Zhangsun family. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers and experts behind him immediately rushed out as a chaotic battle began. Great Demon King, let's go up and fight. Let the children play below. An aged voice resounded. Following that, an old man with a crooked back flew out from a warship. He directly flew up to the sky, and a berserk aura spread out from his body, making Axe Demon and the others below feel oppressed. She really is a fourth tribulation heaven deity. Axe Demon, Blade Demon, and the others looked at each other, but they didn't care too much. If the Zhangsun family only had one fourth tribulation heaven deity, then the hundreds of thousands of people who came today would have to stay on Heavenly Devil Island. Swish! The great demon king flew up. She didn't look at the old man from the Zhangsun family, but at the sky in the north instead. Her emotionless voice resounded. Since the three of you came from the triple heavens, there's no need to hide. Come, let this seat see how powerful the external help that the Zhangsun family invited is. Chapter 21-29. Three mysterious powerful warriors, three at the third realm of the world. The Zhangsun family was well aware of the devil's abilities. Therefore, they would not ask some average warriors from the third realm to come down and help. So, the three were fourth tribulation gods? Could the devil deal with three fourth tribulation gods and the old man of the Zhangsun family? Demon Axe and the others were worried. But what else could they do? They could not interfere in a fight of this level. Charge! Demon Axe, Demon Blade, Demon Arrow and the others had to focus on the more than 100,000 warriors outside the city. Among the more than 100,000, there were more than 200 warriors at the third tribulation, while the Omen Island had less than 100. The difference in numbers was huge. Also, there was a difference in the number of warriors at the peak of the third tribulation. The Omen Island only had 5 while the Zhangsun family had 10. The Omen Island had the advantage in numbers. They had hundreds of thousands more, but the situation was not optimistic. Demon Axe and the others were not worried about the fight below. What they were worried about was the fight above. If the devil above won, then it would be a great victory no matter what happened below. If the devil above lost, then killing all the Zhangsun family warriors would be pointless. The Zhangsun family warriors had the same thought. Therefore, even though the fight was fierce, both sides were holding back. Before the outcome of the fight above was decided, there was no need for the warriors below to risk their lives. Even so, the casualty rate of the low-level warriors was high. The hundreds of thousands of warriors were gathered in the wilderness. The low-level warriors did not care about that. They fought with all their might. The low-level warriors of the Omen Island worshipped the Omen Island blindly, so they believed that they could win. The Zhangsun family was invading the Omen Island, while the Omen Island was defending their home. Naturally, the low-level warriors would fight with all their might. On the other hand, the Zhangsun family all believed that Luli had killed Zhangsun Ryu and the devil had killed their patriarch too. The most powerful force had its pride. Their dignity could not be trampled on. They fought with all their might. Boom, boom, boom. There was a horrifying fluctuation in the sky. There was no Xian energy coming down, but the horrifying Qi and energy were spreading down, making those fighting below tremble with fear. Luli was still in closed-door cultivation. He had activated the inhibition formation. Since nobody was disturbing him, he had no idea what was going on outside. He didn't know that blood had flowed like rivers and bodies were piled up. There were many people standing on the walls of the Sky Demon City. These were all ordinary citizens. Their battle prowess was not enough, so they did not have the qualifications to enter the battlefield. Their faces were solemn as they looked at the sky and the battlefield in the distance from time to time. Although they also had fanatical faith in the great Demon King, they couldn't help but feel a little worried when the great Demon King fought 4 people alone. The casualties on the battlefield in front of them were getting more and more tragic. Many of the casualties were their relatives and clansmen. Seeing them injured or dead, many people's faces were filled with grief. Boom, boom, boom. The battle had been going on for a full hour, and the outcome of the battle had yet to be decided. The people of the Zhangsun family were slightly anxious. The 4 of them had fought for an hour and there was still no winner? The great Demon King's combat power was so terrifying? Since he couldn't win in an hour, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to win at all. Xiao! Suddenly, a black shadow fell from the sky. All the experts present stopped fighting at this moment. Their divine senses swept towards the sky and locked onto the black shadow that was falling. Ah, ancestor! The experts of the Zhangsun family cried out in grief, but Axe Demon and the others were overjoyed. Because the person who fell was the Zhangsun family's ancestor. Moreover, when they scanned with their divine senses, they found that the Zhangsun family's ancestor had lost half of his head. He had been killed. Boom! The Zhangsun family's ancestor's body fell heavily on the ground. Because the experts of the Zhangsun family were too shocked, none of them went to catch the body. They just let the ancestor fall on the ground and raise a cloud of dust. SSSS, countless people of the Zhangsun family gasped. Their faces were filled with grief and shock. The ancestor's chest bone was shattered, and half of his head was completely cut off. He died a horrible death. It was difficult to determine the winner in a battle between experts, or life and death could be decided in an instant. After fighting for an hour, the great Demon King actually killed the Zhangsun family's ancestor. Most importantly, it was 1 against 4. 4 against 1. If the great Demon King was going to use his killer move, the other 3 would definitely be able to help to block for a while or restrain the Zhangsun family's ancestor. If the great Demon King could kill one, he could kill the second, the third. It's over. The family head of the Zhangsun family was terrified. He didn't have time to think about the ancestor's death. He was thinking about the survival of the entire Zhangsun family. If the 3 people on the top were all defeated or killed, the Zhangsun family would probably perish. Swish! Another sonic boom rang out from above. Following that, a badly mangled figure with an indistinguishable face fell to the ground. There was a bloody hole in the person's chest, and his head was blown off. No one knew who it was. The Lord is mighty. The Lord is invincible. The Axe Demon scanned with his mind and was instantly overjoyed. He waved his arm and shouted. Although he didn't know who this person was, he was sure it wasn't the great Demon King because this person was a man. The Lord is mighty. The Lord is invincible. All the people of the demonic island shouted. Their voices resounded through the 9 heavens, shaking many Zhangsun family's experts. Just when the Zhangsun family didn't know what to do, a furious roar came from the 9 heavens. How dare you kill my 4th brother? Do you know which family in the 3rd heaven we are from? Isn't it the Zhangsun family from the Moon Lake? The great Demon King's cold and emotionless voice echoed. I don't care if you are acting tyrannically at the Moon Lake. You came to this plane to act tyrannically. Let alone the 3 of you, even if your patriarch came, I would still dare to kill him. Boom! There was a loud explosion, and another figure flew down. This person didn't die and was smashed into the ground. However, he didn't rush up this time. Instead, he turned into a red light and flew into the distance. He roared with rage, "Old 6 go! Great Demon King, right? You have guts. Our Zhangsun family will never let this matter go." Swish! A black light shone in the sky. Then, a long spear pierced down from the 9 heavens and easily hit that person, blasting his head apart. The great Demon King's cold voice echoed. You came and you still want to leave? You think too much. Bang! That third heaven expert's head exploded like fireworks, and his body was pierced into the ground. Another person died. Third brother. There was a sorrowful cry in the sky. However, after the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, there was no more movement. A body fell down quickly and smashed into the wilderness. His head was also blown up. He couldn't be more dead. The whole place was silent. Countless people of the Zhangsun family started to tremble. Many people's teeth were chattering, and their faces were pale. They were defeated. The great demon king fought against 4 people and killed them easily. The Zhangsun family suffered a crushing defeat. Scatter and run. The master of the Zhangsun family reacted quickly. He yelled and flew over. He grabbed the body of the great ancestor of his family and ran away quickly. Swish, 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 10 spear shadows appeared in the 9 heavens. As fast as lightning, they hit 10 people at the peak of the 3rd calamity of the Zhangsun family. As expected, the bodies of the 10 people at the peak of the 3rd calamity of the Zhangsun family all exploded. They were killed instantly. Chapter 2130. Lu Li had been in closed-door cultivation for 3 months. He knew nothing about the outside world. He had been thinking about how to detoxify the poison. Finally, he had made great progress during the 3 months. He had successfully dissolved the poison in his body. The way to dissolve the poison was similar to controlling the primordial energy. Lu Li controlled the energy with the trace of Tao and then absorbed it into his 720 acupoints. As long as the energy entered his acupoints, it would become his own energy. Not only was it free of poison, it could also strengthen his body. The energy was overwhelming, just like the quintessence. After Lu Li had consumed all the energy in 3 months, he realized his body was stronger. Making sure that the strange energy was gone, Lu Li came out from cultivation. After he left, he found Gan Lin and found out that an earth-shattering battle had taken place 3 months ago. "Why didn't you call me?" Lu Li asked in dissatisfaction after a moment of surprise. After all, the Zhangsun family was here for him. He felt ashamed that he didn't even come out to fight. "What do you need to do?" Gan Lin pouted and said, "Your divine energy is sealed and your abilities are reduced. You can't do much even if you come out. Grandpa said that since our Lord didn't tell us to relocate, then he must be confident." Okay. Lu Li sighed. At the end of the day, he was not powerful enough. It didn't matter if he was here or not. His desire for power was growing. He didn't want to be protected by the devil for the rest of his life. It was shameful for a man to need a woman's protection. Lu Li didn't ask more. Now that the matter had come to an end, it was pointless to ask more. What he needed to do now was to improve his abilities and then go to the 3rd heaven for the devil to trade for the scriptures. He didn't like to owe people favors. The devil had done so much for him. Now it was time for him to repay the favor. He stayed in the city for half a day before he returned to the Cloud Mountain. He bought some liquid of Earth Dragon from the Palace of Heaven Music, and he still had some quintessence left. He planned to consume all of them to improve his body. Also, he planned to cultivate divine energy and study fundamental principles to improve his abilities in all aspects. He shouldn't wander around before he reached the peak of the 3rd heaven. The Hall of Black Flames could no longer hold its head up high. Nobody at the 2nd heaven could threaten him. His family and friends had all come to the 2nd heaven. He had nothing to worry about and could focus on cultivation. After returning to Heavenly Cloud Mountain, there was not much commotion. Because Elder Chen had sealed off all information, the people of the Lu clan did not know anything. They had been living in peace and cultivating. Lu Renhuang had gone to the 1st level of the Tower of Monsters, and he almost made it. Lu Li had a whole new level of respect for Lu Renhuang. However, when he thought about it, his father's talent was also extremely high. If not for the fact that he had to take care of the Lu clan in the past, he would have long become a god. Prajna and Bai Chioshua both learned a fundamental principle at the Demon King Mountain, which pleased Luli. Everyone wanted to become stronger, and they were all pursuing greater strength. It was true that their combat abilities meant little to Luli. That being said, everyone had their own pursuits in life. Otherwise, with their long lives, they wouldn't just sit around and wait for death. Skycloud Mountain had many spirit herbs and all sorts of resources, enough for the Lu family to cultivate for many years. Luli asked Patriarch Chen to take care of these matters. He stayed with them for a while and then went into closed-door cultivation. Skycloud Mountain was very peaceful, and the outside world had been especially peaceful recently. During this time, no forces had declared war against each other. Everyone had been behaving themselves. Many leaders of major forces came to the Omen Island in person, asking to meet the Demon King. Some of them even shouted out slogans, asking the Demon King to proclaim herself as the ruler of the second heaven. Unfortunately, the Demon King did not receive anyone. She only asked the Axe Demon to tell them to go back to where they came from. Her attitude was still the same. The Omen Island would not fight for hegemony, and she would not get involved in the affairs of the second heaven. As long as they did not provoke the Omen Island, she would not care about the affairs of the second heaven. When the Demon King's words came out, the other forces were relieved. Many were afraid that the Demon King would unify the second heaven. By then, they would all lose their interests and become the vassal of the Omen Island. The Omen Island was particularly lively during this time. More and more people came to join the Omen Island. Some small forces even came to the Omen Island for shelter. Many warriors were asking to join the island army so that they could be the direct subordinates of the Demon King. The Demon King had become the uncrowned king of the second heaven. Who would dare to bully the Demon King when they were in the second heaven? Who would dare to disrespect her? Axe Demon and the others had become the target of enticement by the major forces. Many leaders came to visit the Demon King. Since they were not received, they had to build a good relationship with Axe Demon, Saber Demon, and Arrow Demon. Even Qin Zhan, Lady Qiong, and Lady Mu were sent by their families to visit Luli and build a good relationship with him. The three families had brought the body refinement pellets with them. They all knew what Luli needed the most. Luli's nickname of the Little Demon King was getting more and more famous in the second heaven. Even some people thought that Luli was the illegitimate son of the Demon King. Otherwise, why would the Demon King treat him so favorably when he had only joined the Omen Island for less than 10 years? For him, the Demon King did not hesitate to start a war with the Saint Origin Palace. Now, he even destroyed the Zhangsun family. After Qin Zhan and the others went to visit Luli, many families realized that it was meaningless to build a good relationship with Axe Demon and the others. The most important thing was to build a good relationship with Luli. Axe Demon and the others were reasonable and well-behaved, but not Luli. Didn't he kill Zhangsun Ryu after he had sex with her? He is a completely unreasonable person. Therefore, many messengers came. Many of them were young masters and young ladies of different families. They came to visit Luli with the body refinement pellet. If they could build a good relationship, Luli would have to do it for Luli's sake the next time he had a conflict with them. Luli came out from cultivation several times. Since then, too many people had come to visit him. Lu Renhuang and Lu Xingyang had to do it. Apart from the Black Flame Hall, the Fu family and the Dragon race, Luli could accept the gifts from the other families. Many families sent over many body refinement pellets, which was a pleasant surprise for Luli. He didn't have to go looking for body refinement pellets for a while. Though the pellets they sent were not of high quality, they were in large quantities. He just needed to consume more. A year later, the Demon King did not make any moves. The forces at the second heaven were relieved. Finally, someone was thinking about the Sky Heart Island. A powerful independent cultivator had taken over the Sky Heart Island. But it was evident that he could not take it all by himself. Some forces were itching for action. Lu Li stopped cultivation today, not because he had reached a bottleneck. It was because he had received an invitation from the Qin family. Qin Zhan had been pursuing her for years. Today, he had come to fruition. In a month, he would marry Lady Qiong. Qin Zhan was one of the few friends Lu Li had at the second heaven. Lu Li must go. He arrived at the Asmodean city, and found that Gan Lin had received an invitation as well. But when Gan Lin went to report, Axe Demon said that he wanted to go with him. Axe Demon received an invitation as well. Of course, he would not show up on such occasions. The Qin family was not that influential. Axe Demon must be here to protect Lu Li and Gan Lin. Lord Axe Demon, I don't think anyone at the second heaven dares to do anything to us now. I don't think we need to trouble you. Lu Li scratched his head in embarrassment. Axe Demon rolled his eyes and said, I am not going with you because I am afraid that you will be in trouble. I am afraid that you will make trouble. You are a troublemaker. If you make trouble again, I will not be able to answer to our Lord. Chapter 21:31. What's the situation on Heaven Devil Island? I don't know. The scouts didn't send out any news. It's been a few days. Why is there no news? Are those scouts all dead? I just asked an elder of the Black Flame Hall. Their clan scouts didn't send out any news either. That's strange. It's been 5 days. Logically speaking, the outcome should have been decided, right? It's impossible that there is no news. There were many scouts outside Heaven Devil Island, and many elders of great clans were hiding in the nearby islands. The Black Flame Hall Master, Fu Clan Head, and Long Clan Head had all come personally. They brought their clan's martial experts, thinking that if the Zhangsun clan won, they would immediately follow and attack Heaven Devil Island. They would burn, kill, and plunder. Even if they didn't plunder any treasures, they could at least vent their anger. However, it had been 5 days since the Zhangsun clan's army entered, and there was no news. The scouts from their forces seemed to have all vanished from the face of the earth. No news came out. Hall Master Yen. On a small island, the Dragon Clan Head, Fu Clan Head, and Black Flame Hall Master gathered together. The Long Clan Head said, Doesn't your Black Flame Hall have a spy on Heaven Devil Island? Mobilize those spies to scout the situation. Alright. The Black Flame Hall Master summoned someone and gave the order. After waiting for a few days, he was also a little anxious. They didn't know the situation on Heaven Devil Island at all, and they didn't know what to do next. Whether to advance or retreat, they needed accurate information. Another day passed by, and a spy finally sent out a piece of news from Heaven Devil Island. It shocked the Long Clan Head, Black Flame Hall Master, Fu Clan Head, and the others. They were speechless for a long time. The Zhangsun clan had over 100,000 people, a few hundred martial experts, and 3/3 Heaven martial experts in the dark to attack Heaven Devil City. However, they were completely annihilated. None of them escaped. The Great Demon Queen alone killed 3/3 Heaven martial experts and the Zhangsun clan's old ancestor. In addition, the Zhangsun clan's third Tribulation Peak Stage expert was also killed by her. The rest of the Zhangsun clan's martial artists were killed by Axe Devil, Saber Devil, and Arrow Devil. None of them escaped and were all killed. There had been no news from the Alliance for the past few days. It was as if the scouts from the various major powers had vanished into thin air. The authenticity of this information was very high. It was impossible for a battle to last for so long. Most importantly, if the Zhangsun family won, why would the people of the demonic island still have the mood to kill the scouts they sent out? Cold. The moment they received the news, the leaders of the major forces felt a chill run down their spines, from head to toe. Although they had thought that the Great Demon King might win, they didn't expect the Zhangsun family to lose so thoroughly. More than 100,000 people and several hundred Third Tribulation experts were almost the majority of the Zhang-Sun family's forces. After this battle, the Zhang-Sun family would be removed from the 36 major forces. From being the undisputed number one family in the second heaven, to being removed from the list of the 36 major forces in the second heaven. There were even third heaven-level experts participating in this battle, but they were still completely defeated. After the three of them sat together for a long time, the Fu clan leader's lips trembled and he said, "What should we do? Retreat? Wait a little longer." The Long family patriarch shook his head and said, "What if this is fake news? Although the great demon king was strong, how could he easily kill a third celestial layer powerhouse? How about this? I will arrange for some people to enter the island to investigate." The dragon race patriarch didn't believe it. The Zhang-Sun clan had a powerful backer in the third heaven, and they were able to invite a third heaven-level expert to descend. The great demon king couldn't be this powerful, right? All right, the others nodded. After all, they didn't really believe it. If the information was wrong, it would affect their judgment, and they would lose the initiative in many things. The dragon race patriarch went to make arrangements. Of course, he wouldn't send anyone from the dragon race in. If something happened, it would implicate the Long clan. He sent some secret death warriors in. If all these death warriors were killed, he would be able to obtain some information. He sent a total of 50 men to enter from 5 different directions of the island. Each side had 10 men, and they had disguised their identities. Another 2 days passed, and there was finally news. Although more than half of the 50 elite death warriors had died, there was still news. The news was finally verified. After all, the entire Heaven Devil Island had heard that more than 100,000 people from the Zhang-Sun clan had been killed. Such an uplifting news had spread, and the entire Heaven Devil Island knew about it. Retreat. After receiving the confirmation, the Long clan, Black Flame Hall, and Fu clan didn't have any more hesitation. Everyone immediately retreated. Once the three factions made their move, many clan scouts immediately felt that something was wrong. However, they didn't receive any confirmation and didn't dare to spread it. Another 5 days passed, and a troop of soldiers came from the south of Heaven Devil Island. Those soldiers took out human heads from their rings and piled them on a small island in the south of the island. There were a lot of human heads, and after several hours, more than 100,000 human heads were piled up neatly on the small island. It was a magnificent sight. After this troop of soldiers retreated, countless scouts went to the small island. After investigating, their expressions all changed. Those human heads were arranged in a few rows, and the scouts recognized the human heads at the front. They were the Zhang-Sun clan's patriarch and elders. The news spread throughout the entire second heaven. It was supposed to be summer, but all the factions in the second heaven felt as if it was a biting cold winter. More than 100,000 people had been killed. The Zhang-Sun clan had sent out more than 100,000 people, and they had been completely wiped out. There were strange movements in Heaven Heart Island as well. The entire Zhang-Sun clan had suddenly disappeared these few days. Many cities didn't see a single Zhang-Sun clan member. It was as if the Zhang-Sun clan had vanished into thin air. The Zhang-Sun clan wasn't the only one in Heaven Heart Island. There were many other clans that depended on the Zhang-Sun clan. They were all panicking these few days. If the Zhang-Sun clan escaped, would they be annihilated if they stayed on Heaven Heart Island? Since the Zhang-Sun clan occupied Heaven Heart Island, it meant that Heaven Heart Island was a very good place. If the Zhang-Sun clan didn't want such a good place, there would naturally be other powerful factions who coveted it. Even if the Great Demon King didn't want Heaven Heart Island, other powerful factions would probably come to occupy it. At that time, a bloody battle would be unavoidable. Let's go. In the end, most of the factions that depended on the Zhang-Sun clan decided to leave. First, they were afraid of being hated by the Great Demon King. Second, they were afraid of being attacked by other factions. Although their clans would suffer huge losses if they left Heaven Heart Island, if they didn't leave, their clans might be annihilated. At this time, no one dared to think about Heaven Heart Island anymore. Many leaders of the powerful factions felt a little terrified, especially the factions that were on good terms with the Zhangsun clan. The martial artists of the Fu clan, Black Flame Hall, and Dragon Race didn't even dare to sleep these days. They were afraid that the great Demon King would bring his army to kill them the moment they woke up. The uncrowned king. If the battle on Chaos Island had established the great Demon King's unparalleled prestige, then the annihilation of the Zhangsun clan had completely solidified the great Demon King's position as the ruler. There was no Dharch in the second heaven, and there was no news from Heaven Devil Island. It seemed like the great Demon King didn't have the intention to fight for hegemony or unify the entire second heaven. Chapter 2133. The Qin clan wasn't one of the 36 major powers, but its influence wasn't any weaker. Plus, there was also the Heaven Immortal Alliance. Therefore, it was hard for Qin Zhan and Lady Qiong's wedding to go unnoticed. There were hundreds of cities in Qin King Island, and recently, all of them were in a festive mood. The people living in them were all in high spirits, as if the biggest festival had arrived. As the most outstanding disciple of the Qin clan, Qin Zhan had a great influence on the entire Qin King Island. His character was also recognized by the people of the island. The Qin clan was the royal family, and Qin Zhan was the crown prince. The crown prince married a princess from another power. A few months ago, the Qin clan even said that the island would be exempted from taxes for a year. How could the people of the island not be happy? Today, the Qin King City was the most lively. The teleportation array kept flashing, and more domain gates were opened. This broadened the horizons of the people in the city as they saw many famous big shots. Look, isn't that the young lady of the Mu clan? The Mu clan also sent 3 elders. Young master's face is too big. What's the big deal about the Mu clan's elders? Do you know who was welcomed just now? That's the hall master of the Grasswood Hall, one of the top big shots in the second heaven. Look, another domain gate opened. Who is this? The clan master came to welcome him personally. I know. He's a hidden expert, ranked top 20 on the Heavenly God list. He's a hidden great figure, Zhuge Xiong. I didn't expect him to come. He seemed to be on good terms with the clan master back then. The city was in an uproar from time to time. Every time a big shot came, the people in the city would be excited. They were all the people of the Qin clan. They felt honored that so many big shots came to congratulate the Qin clan. Because of Zhuge Xiong's arrival, the people who came later turned pale. After all, Zhuge Xiong was ranked 16th on the Heavenly God list. Although he was a hidden rogue cultivator, he was stronger than the leaders of the major powers. The Fu clan's elder is here. The Fu clan's new divine son, Fu Yang, is here. The new young temple master of Black Flame Hall is here too. What's the name of this generation's young temple master? Yanqi? The palace lord of the Black Flame Hall is not here. Seems like the Black Flame Hall and the Fu family are not giving me any face. The Bu family and the Gu family only sent their divine son, divine daughter, and a few elders over. They probably have some complaints about our Qin family. Little Young Master and Little Devil King are very close. The leaders of these forces must be secretly dissatisfied. Almost all the forces in the Stormy Sea region had sent representatives. Some of them were family heads, while others were represented by divine sons, goddesses, or elders. It was almost time, and those who were supposed to be here had all arrived. The largest palace in Imperial Qin City was already filled with people, and there were hundreds of tables set up. The side halls were also filled with tables. The guests who came this time could fill at least 1,000 tables. The sky fluctuated, and another space gate opened. 3 people flew out from it. Many people took a glance and didn't pay much attention at first. Great factions would always have a grand entrance. This faction had only sent 3 people. It was obvious that it wasn't big enough. Eh? That person? A surprised voice rang out. Next, many figures flew out from countless castles. It was not just the Qin clan's clan head and elders. Even the leaders and elders of the other powers flew out. Ha ha ha! Qin Liantian, family head of the Qin family, laughed from afar. His laughter was filled with joy. He cupped his fists and said, Lord Axe Demon, young Master Lu, and young Master Gon, you have graced us with your presence. The entire Imperial Qin Island is honored by your presence. I am so grateful. Qin Zhan was wearing a red robe, beaming with joy. Seeing that Lu Li was here, his smile grew wider. He cupped his fists and said, Lord Axe Demon, Brother Lu, Brother Gon, thank you very much. Axe Demon, Lu Li. The entire city was in an uproar, even more so than when Zhuge Xiong arrived. The Demon King was the uncrowned leader of the Second Heaven. Axe Demon was the most powerful general under the Demon King's command, and also the spokesperson of the Demon King. Who was Lu Li? He was the little Devil King, the illegitimate son of the Demon King. Putting aside his relationship with the Demon King, Lu Li himself was an extraordinary man, the most powerful among the young generation. 2 warriors at the peak of the third tribulation had died in his hand. Zhuge Xiong was strong, but he was only at the peak of the third tribulation. The arrival of Lu Li and Axe Demon really brought light to the Qin Imperial City, which made the standard of this wedding exceptionally high. Many patriarchs and patriarchs of other families, who usually didn't have the chance to interact with Lu Li and Axe Demon, gathered around at this moment. It seemed that the protagonist today was not Qin Zhan, but Lu Li and Axe Demon. Lu Li and Axe Demon exchanged greetings for a while. Axe Demon waved his hand and said, Let's talk later. This time, we are here to attend Qin Zhan's wedding. Qin Zhan, I wish you a happy wedding. I have prepared a small gift. I hope you don't mind. Axe Demon presented an exquisite gift box. Qin Zhan quickly received it with both hands in fear. He bowed with gratitude and said, Thank you, Lord Axe Demon, for your kindness. Ha ha ha. Axe Demon laughed and waved his hand. You are friends with Lu Li and Gon Lin. From now on, don't call me Lord. Call me Grandpa Gon. The Qin family patriarch and a group of patriarchs were overjoyed. They bowed and thanked Axe Demon again and again. The words of Axe Demon carried a lot of weight. Qin Zhan called Axe Demon Grandpa Gon. From now on, the status of the Qin family in the Second Heaven would rise by several levels. Anyone who wanted to attack the Qin family would have to consider Axe Demon's attitude. Qin Zhan, happy wedding. Lu Li and Gon Lin both presented gift. Lu Li gave a heaven and earth elixir. This elixir was priceless. It was enough for a gift. Lu Li, I am very happy that you can come today. You even gave me a gift. Qin Zhan's voice was choking with sobs. Lu Li's presence was already a great honor for him. This would have a far-reaching impact on the Qin family. We are brothers. Don't say these things. Lu Li patted Qin Zhan's shoulder. They flew down. Qin Liantian personally led them in. Axe Demon and Lu Li were arranged to sit at the head of the table. Next to them was Zhuge Xiong. You are Lu Li? Zhuge Xiong was not unhappy that a young man was arranged to sit next to him. Instead, he looked at Lu Li with curiosity and said, Heroes come from the young. When I was your age, I was only at the Second Heaven Tribulation realm. Qin Liantian introduced Lu Li at once. Lu Li would never slap a smiling face. He smiled, cupped his fists and said, Greetings, Lord Zhuge. Thank you for the compliment. Lu Li's attitude was modest. Zhuge Xiong was even more satisfied. He stroked his white beard and said, There are rumors that you are unruly, extreme, condescending, and arrogant. Now that I have seen you, it seems that they are all rumors. How can you be such a person when you are so polite? You are such a good boy, gentle and modest. How can you be discredited? Are they still human? At the Fu family, the Black Flame Hall, the Bu family and the Gu family were speechless. Chapter 2134. Because of the arrival of Lu Li and Axe Demon, the wedding became livelier. Many people were putting on airs at first. But as soon as Axe Demon and Lu Li sat down, the smiles on their faces grew wider. They praised Qin Zhan and were more polite to Qin Liantian. Axe Demon told Qin Zhan to call him Grandpa Gon, which changed Qin Zhan's status. Axe Demon had received many visitors before, but he didn't show any affection. Now that he was being so nice to Qin Zhan, the status of the Qin family became special. The most important thing was the relationship between Lu Li and Qin Zhan. Lu Li said "brother" in public. If someone offended Qin Zhan and Lu Li stood up for him, who could stand up for him? The little devil was not as docile and modest as Zhuge Xiong described him to be. How much trouble had he caused over the years? How many immortal princes and goddesses had died? The Fu family's immortal prince of the Black Flame Hall had just been replaced. An ordinary wedding had become unusual. Many people regretted that they didn't give enough gifts and were trying to make up for it. With Axe Demon and Lu Li on their side, the Qin family could do whatever they wanted in the Storm Sea area. After the ceremony, Qin Zhan and Lady Qiong toasted one by one. Qin Zhan was drunk and his face was glowing. He was the happiest today to be able to marry the girl he liked. Some were happy and some were sad. The Qin family was jubilant, but the Fu family and the Bu family of the Black Flame Hall were restless. The two immortal princes of the Fu family and the Black Flame Hall felt like they were sitting on pins and needles. Their greatest enemy was sitting not far away. Countless people were going up to him to toast him, but no one was paying any attention to them. Furthermore, some divine sons and divine daughters even saw that their target was a little strange and had a faint look of mockery. Yan Qi, the new immortal prince of the Black Flame Hall, was finally displeased to see the immortal princes and goddesses who were on good terms with him were going to toast to Lu Li. Being young and impetuous, he put down his glass and stood up, ready to leave. His loud noise attracted many people's attention. Qin Liantian, Qin Zhan and Lady Qiong had just gone to the side chamber to toast and didn't see it. However, the patriarchs of the Qin family changed their expressions. The day of the wedding was such a joyous occasion. If the divine prince of the Black Flame Hall were to cause a scene, it would affect the atmosphere of the day and make the Qin clan lose face even though they were not afraid. Lu Li had just drunk a goblet of wine. He threw a glance to Yan Qi and then to the patriarchs of the Qin family. He was displeased. Before the patriarchs of the Qin family could say anything, Lu Li said indifferently, "Who are you? Did you drink too much?" Swish, swish, swish. Yan Qi's face flushed red when he saw the countless gazes on him. Just now, he was angry and wanted to put down his cup and leave. Now that Lu Li had said so, it would be shameful for him to leave now. As the new holy son of the Hall of Black Flame, everyone here knew him. How could Lu Li ask who he was? If he left now, wouldn't it mean that he was afraid of Lu Li? The patriarchs of the Hall of Black Flames on the side kept winking at him, but he pretended not to notice. He took a deep breath, looked at Lu Li and said, "Yan Qi, the chosen warrior of the Hall of Black Flames. Young Master Lu, you are at the second heaven now. It is normal that you don't know me." "Yan Qi?" Lu Li raised his eyebrows. He understood why Yan Qi smashed his goblet. It would have been fine if it were any other occasion. But today was Qin Zhan's wedding. How could Yan Qi be so disrespectful? Jiang Yi's face turned cold as his eyes flashed coldly. Without giving any face, he said, "The previous god's son was not you." "I forgot. I killed the previous god's son of the Black Flame Hall. You were chosen later, right?" Son of Yen, if you are drunk, go back and rest. Don't disturb the feast. What? Lu Li's words caused an uproar in the hall. Lu Li was being disrespectful. He pointed out that Yen Qi killed the former holy son of the Hall of Black Flames. It was one thing to press Black Flame Hall's face into the ground and stomp on it, but he was also spitting on it. Young master. The patriarchs of the Hall of Black Flames were frightened, but they didn't argue with Lu Li. Instead, they stood up and tried to stop Yen Qi, fearing that he would act rashly. Lu Li was not the old Lu Li. Not even their Grand Master would dare to do anything, let alone the patriarchs. If Yen Qi were to act rashly, he would only be asking for humiliation. Yen Qi's eyes turned slightly red. As the new generation's godson, he was naturally the Yen clan's pride and was usually held in high regard. Everywhere he went, he would hear compliment. When had he ever been humiliated like this? And in front of so many important figures? Axe Demon picked up a goblet of wine and gulped it down. Luckily, he came along this time. Otherwise, Lu Li, the troublemaker, would stir up trouble. Maybe the Hall of Black Flames would have to change the Holy Sun again. Even though Yen Qi was filled with anger, he didn't lose his mind. He didn't do something as stupid as challenging Lu Li to a duel. He sneered and said, "Just now, Lord Zhuge said that young Master Lu is gentle and modest. Is this what you mean by gentle and modest? Lord Zhuge, you have seen what it means to bully others with your power." Zhuge Xiong pouted but said nothing. Instead, he looked at Lu Li with interest, wondering how he would deal with this. Lu Li didn't care what others thought of him. He didn't even explain anything about Zhang Sunryu. Sometimes, the more he explained, the harder it was to explain. Did it really matter what others thought of him? Since when did the evil lord care about others? What do you mean by bully others with your power? Lu Li put on a mocking smile and said, "When I killed the former holy son of your family, did I ever rely on anyone's power? Today is my brother's wedding. You are the one who made trouble first. Otherwise, who would want to talk to you? Speaking of power? If you are not the holy son of the Hall of Black Flames, then who do you think you are? How about we go out now and let's not rely on power? Let's just have a duel?" Everyone quieted down. Lu Li had drawn his sword. If Yen Qi agreed, then the Hall of Black Flames would really have to change their holy sun. This holy sun could tell that Lu Li had just reached the third tribulation realm. Lu Li had even killed warriors at the peak of the third tribulation. To kill Yen Qi would be as easy as crushing an ant. Yen Qi was trembling with anger. He almost agreed to Lu Li's challenge. Sensing something was off, the patriarch next to him said in a hurry, "Young Master Lu, you are so arrogant. How can you bully a kid?" "Then I won't bully him." Lu Li didn't back down. He looked at the patriarch and said, "How about I bully you? You three patriarchs can fight together and I, Lu Li, can handle it alone?" This time, it was the patriarch's turn to vomit blood. The three patriarchs were all at the later stage of the third tribulation. They didn't dare to fight Lu Li. What was more, the Axe Demon was here. He could defeat many warriors at the peak of the third tribulation. Lu Li saw that the warriors of the Hall of Black Flames didn't dare to say anything. He believed that Qin Zhan and the others would be back soon. Lu Li waved his hand impatiently and said, "If you want to fight, then fight. If not, get out. Don't disturb our drinking. What are you up to by making trouble on someone else's wedding day?" The patriarch of the Hall of Black Flames was trembling with anger again. He was alarmed to see that Yen Qi's eyes were bloodshot. Fearing that Yen Qi would agree to the duel on impulse, the patriarch dragged Yen Qi out and said, "The Hall of Black Flames will remember what happened today. Goodbye." Chapter 2135. By the time Qin Zhan and the others came in, the warriors of the Hall of Black Flame had left. Qin Liantian and Qin Zhan should have known, but they pretended not to. The atmosphere returned to normal, as if the warriors of the Hall of Black Flame had never been here. After this incident, the atmosphere in the hall became even more intense. At first, the Fu family, Bu family, and Gu family wanted to leave. But now they had to be obedient and put on a smile. Yan Qi was a negative example. If she were to get into conflict with Lu Li, she would only be asking for humiliation. Not even patriarchs of the Hall of Black Flame dared to fight Lu Li. If the immortal princes and goddesses went to Lu Li, they would be asking for humiliation. There were so many people here today. The Hall of Black Flame had been disgraced. Of course, the Hall of Black Flame had been disgraced, and so had the Fu family. As long as Lu Li was alive, the Hall of Black Flame and the Fu family would never be able to raise their heads again. In the past, the Hall of Black Flame swore that they had killed the god of massacre from hell and hung a corpse on it. Now it seemed to be a big joke. The Hall of Black Flame used to be among the top 10 of the 36 forces. But secretly, the Hall of Black Flame had been at the bottom, at least in terms of prestige. Now, some powerful warriors had left the Hall of Black Flame, let alone those who had gone to the Hall of Black Flame. A force could not rely on just one family. Take the Qin family as an example. Even though the Qin family was the leader, many patriarchs were not of the same family. A major power needed many clans to unite and constantly recruit experts in order to maintain its prestige and territory. If a force had a bad reputation, the powerful warriors that were attached to it would leave, not to mention attracting powerful warriors from outside. Gradually, the force would decline or even perish. This was the case for the Hall of Black Flame and the Fu family. For example, if a genius was recruited by the Hall of Black Flame and the Qin family at the same time and offered the same conditions, the genius would definitely choose the Qin family. When the powerful warriors of the Hall of Black Flame and the Fu family passed away, there would be no new warriors to replace them. The two forces would perish sooner or later. The drinking lasted until the afternoon. The guests gradually left, but some stayed because the Axe Demon and Lu Li hadn't left yet. Lu Li didn't leave. It was Qin Zhan who invited him alone. After entertaining the guests for the whole morning, Qin Zhan let Qin Liantian handle the rest. He invited Gan Lin and Lu Li to his own yard. Lu Li, what are your plans for the future? Qin Zhan didn't waste any words. After asking the maid to serve tea, he asked with a serious expression. Although he had drunk a lot of wine, it was nothing to a martial artist like him. What's the plan? Lu Li was confused and so was Gan Lin. Do you plan to spend the rest of your life in the second layer of heaven? Qin Zhan was a straightforward person. He went straight to the point and asked, Are you not planning to go to the third layer of heaven? Third heaven? Gan Lin's eyes flashed, and a yearning look appeared on his face. Lu Li frowned. On the day of Qin Zhan's wedding, he didn't accompany his wife. Instead, he talked to him about the third heaven. What was going on? He nodded and said, I will definitely go to the third heaven, but my strength is not enough. I need to reach the peak of the third tribulation before I can go. Sure enough. Qin Zhan smiled and nodded. I knew you would go back to the third heaven. The second heaven can no longer give you excitement. Ha ha ha, in other words, there is nothing in the second heaven that you can harm. People like you are more suitable to go to the third heaven. What do you mean by harm? Lu Li curled his lips innocently and said, You know that I don't like to cause trouble. It is others who provoke me. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Qin Zhan said seriously, Lu Li, you have to promise me one thing. When you go to the third heaven, you must take me with you. I will go with you and explore the third heaven. What? Lu Li was speechless. He rolled his eyes and said, You just got married and your wife just got married, but you want to go with me to the third heaven? Do you know anything about the third heaven? Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to come back? You haven't gone yet, have you? Qin Zhan grinned, took a sip of tea and said, I think it will take you 10 years to go to the third heaven. After 10 years, my children will be a few years old. During these years, I will make the best use of my time to leave a descendant for the Qin family. By then, I can go with you to the third heaven. It is too depressing in the second heaven. As the Qin family's chosen one, my every move has to be controlled. Most importantly, there are too many things to worry about here. Only when I go to the third heaven can I fight with my life on the line. Only then can I achieve great achievements on the path of martial arts. I feel that going to the third heaven with you will be very exciting. Exciting! Gan Lin's eyes lit up at this moment. He looked at Lu Li seriously and said, Lu Li, when you go, you must take me with you. The second heaven is really not that interesting. Us three brothers will go to the third heaven together. In the future, the three of us will become emperors and return home in glory. Lu Li was speechless. Were they out of their minds? Did they think the third heaven was a place of treasures? To go sightseeing and treasure hunting? Lu Li said to the two seriously, You must know many things. The devil offended Empress Phoenix and the Zhangsun family of the third heaven. I don't know why he didn't go down to the mortal world to seek revenge, but I can promise you, as long as we go to the third heaven, we will be hunted down endlessly by the two forces. If you are impatient, you can find a rope and hang yourselves now. I know. Qin Zhan's tone was very firm. He nodded and said, I know all this, but I know one more thing. If I don't go to the third heaven, I can only reach the peak of the third tribulation realm in my life, and then repeat the life of my grandpa and father. This kind of life is so boring. If I didn't meet Yu Qiong, I would have gone to the third heaven by myself. Now that Yu Qiong is married to me, I have no more regrets. Also, it will be exciting to follow you. You know, a warrior can only go through life and death battles if he wants to become a powerful warrior. I have a feeling that, if I follow you, I will have a chance to reach the fourth tribulation realm. Gan Lin answered with determination, Lu Li, I am serious as well. You know about my life at the Omen Island. I don't want to live under my grandpa's protection for the rest of my life. I want to go to the third heaven. If you don't take me, then I will go alone. All right. Lu Li shrugged and said, I will let you know when I am leaving. If you can convince Patriarch Qin and Lord Axe Demon, I will take you with me. It's a deal. Qin Zhan was overjoyed, but Gan Lin was frowning. Clearly, he did not have much confidence in convincing Axe Demon. 10 years? Lu Li was confused. Could his comprehensive abilities reach the peak of the third tribulation realm in 10 years? After practicing the bone refining technique for 10 years, his bones should have turned black, right? By then, could his physical body be as strong as the peak of the third tribulation realm? I need to cultivate the ghost cut. I need to find a way. Lu Li nodded. If the ghost cut could be integrated with two more fundamental meanings and his physical abilities, he could be as strong as a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation realm. Chapter 2136. Time flew by like a shuttle, and 10 years passed very quickly. The third heaven didn't send anyone down, not even one. Many warriors at the second heaven could not understand this. Phoenix Empress and the Zhangsun family of the Moon Lake swallowed their anger? This was not logical. As long as the warriors at the third heaven didn't come down, the second heaven wouldn't be disturbed, not even a little bit. During these 10 years, apart from a few major forces fighting on Heavenly Heart Island and some minor conflicts, the second heaven had been terrifyingly quiet for the past 10 years. Little Devil Lu Li didn't make trouble for the Fu family or the Black Flame Hall or the Dragon Race. He never came out after he went back to the Omen Island, which made many forces feel relieved. As long as the Little Devil didn't come out, nothing would happen. The Celestial God list was updated. The Little Devil became the number 1 and Little Devil Lu Li entered the top 100. Lu Li was not stable. Even though he could kill Yun Zhan Tian and the patriarchs of the Zhangsun family, the celestial god list only gave him a rank in the 60s. If one had to say that something major had happened, it would be that the Heavenly Sound Palace had sold 2 Xuanwu fruit. But the fruits were sold for a long time, 4 years, because the fruits could not be bought with divine origin gold. They had to be traded with elixirs that could refine the body. 1 black tortoise fruit could prolong one's life by 30,000 years. For some old farts, it was a real elixir. Many old farts went to dangerous places to hunt for treasures. Eventually, 2 old farts traded the fruits with elixirs. During the 10 years, the Fu family and the Black Flame Hall had declined. The dragon race was better, but they never came out again. The entire dragon race sealed off the island. No disciple came out for 10 years. During the 10 years, not only did the Fu family of the Black Flame Hall lose 1 powerful warrior or genius, they lost dozens. Disciples of the 2 forces didn't dare to go out. Once or twice, they were bullied and laughed at by the young generation of other forces. Master of the Black Flame Hall, family patriarch of the Fu family and their patriarchs were worried. But they couldn't find a solution no matter how hard they tried. As long as the little devil was still in the second heaven, the 2 forces would never be able to lift their heads and would gradually fade away. The Qin clan had become much stronger in the past 10 years, attracting many geniuses and experts to seek refuge with them. In these 10 years, Qin Zhan almost never came out. Other than making babies at home, he was cultivating. She had 2 sons and a daughter. She was very successful in both aspects. His realm had also reached the middle stage of the Third Tribulation. His overall combat strength was comparable to the late stage of the Third Tribulation. Gan Lin was almost the same. Gan Lin, who had no intention of getting married a woman in the second year. This woman was not the goddess of a great power, but an ordinary woman on Heavenly Devil Island. In 10 years, she had given birth to 3 sons, and her battle prowess had also increased by leaps and bounds, reaching the late stage of the Third Tribulation. Compared to the 2, Luli was worlds apart. Over the past 10 years, Luli had been working hard and would go down to the divinity to sow seed. That being said, he did not have a single wife or concubine. From this point of view, the problem did not lie with Jiang Qiling, by Qiushuan Prujna, but with Luli. For this matter, Luli had asked several so-called highly skilled doctors to take a look, but none of them could tell the problem. Lu Xingyang, Lu Renhuang, and the others were worried. Lu Xingyang even told Lu Renhuang to marry some girls. Otherwise, the bloodline would be cut off. Luan was an adopted son, but he was not a pure-blood descendant of the Lu family. But in terms of combat abilities, Luli had improved. He had been cultivating divine energy for 10 years and had consumed many treasures. Luli's pellet had doubled in size. When he used the relic iron, the power could be maximized. There was still some divine energy left after he used it. His bones had turned black. He had entered the 3rd stage of bone refinement. He had consumed all the marrow and liquid of earth dragons. He had consumed all the conjoined pellets given by the families, including the pellets he exchanged with the black tortoise fruit. Luli's body had been improved by leaps and bounds. According to Axe Demon, Luli's body could be compared to a warrior at the peak of the Third Tribulation, which meant that an average warrior at the peak of the Third Tribulation would not be able to kill Luli. The Worm of Void and the Master of Venomous Worms did not evolve. Luli secretly went to look for some powerful beasts of primordial chaos. However, the Worm of Void only split and did not evolve. Luli knew nothing about the Master of Venomous Worms. He would not find a corpse to refine the Master of Venomous Worms. Naturally, the Worm of Void did not evolve. Luli had made great progress in fundamental principle as well. He had been studying for 10 years. He went to several places of treasure on the Omen Island. He successfully learned an offensive fundamental principle of wind and integrated it into the Slayer's Ghost Chop. The Slayer's Ghost Chop was further strengthened. It was a pity that the fundamental principle integrated into the Slayer's ghost chop was weak. Therefore, the Slayer's ghost chop was not that powerful. It should not be difficult for the Slayer's ghost chop to kill a warrior at the later stage of the Third Tribulation. But to kill one at the peak of the Third Tribulation would be difficult. The Worm of Void, the master of venomous worms, the physical body, the Slayer's ghost chop, the unfettered steps, the dragon wings, and the relic iron. Lu Li's comprehensive abilities could be compared to a warrior at the peak of the Third Tribulation. At the very least, it would be difficult for an average warrior at the peak of the Third Tribulation to kill him. Lu Li had finished all the elixirs. He could not learn fundamental principle anytime soon. He had reached a bottleneck. Apart from cultivating divine energy and bone refinement, there was nothing else for him to do. Today, Lu Li came out from cultivation. It was not that he wanted to, but two guests had come to him. Lu Li forced a smile when he saw it was Qin Zhan and Gan Lin. They were even more impatient than he was. What? Axe Demon and Lord Qin have agreed? Lu Li picked up a cup of tea and glanced at the two of them. Qin Zhan grinned and said, "Yes. My old man is in the prime of his life. My younger brothers are doing well. The Qin family has been developing fast these years. My departure will not affect the Qin family." "What about Yu Qiong?" Lu Li asked with curiosity. "Yu Qiong has agreed to go to the third heaven?" They had been married for 10 years. In terms of their lifespan, they were still newlywed. How could Lady Qiong let Qin Zhan go to the third heaven so easily? "She will support me," Qin Zhan said with a smile. "She knows my ambition. She knows that I will be bored to death at the second heaven." "What about you?" Lu Li turned around and looked at Gan Lin. The latter was frowning, but he soon waved his hand and said, "Lord Qin has agreed. The rest is not a problem." Gan Lin's meaning was clear. Axe Demon had agreed, but his father probably hadn't. His wife was not happy either. But since Axe Demon had agreed, the rest was not a problem. "Go back and have a good talk with your sister-in-law and uncle." Lu Li waved his hand and made up his mind. He said, "We will leave for the third heaven in a month. But don't make it public. We will leave secretly. Don't tell anyone except for our family." "Okay." Qin Zhan and Gan Lin stood up in excitement. What they had been looking forward to for 10 years was finally going to happen. They were very excited. Chapter 2137. Palace of Mystic Armor, Mount Cloud. Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Xingyang, and Lu Renhuang were sitting together. Lu Renhuang had been cultivating but was called out by Lu Li. The three of them looked at Lu Li, who did not know what to say. It would be unfilial of him to leave after spending 10 years with his family. Lu Renhuang knew his son well. Seeing that Lu Li was hesitating, Lu Renhuang asked, "Tell me, where are you going this time? How long will you be gone?" Lu Li sighed. No one knew his son as well as his father. He got up, dropped to one knee and said, "I am sorry. I have to go on a long journey. As for when exactly, I don't know." Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Lu Xingyang looked at each other. Both of them looked solemn. They had been in the second heaven for a long time. They had a better understanding of this world. Patriarch of Law Enforcement asked, "Are we going to the third heaven?" Lu Li nodded. Lu Xingyang asked, "Do you have to go?" "I have to," Lu Li said with determination. Patriarch of Law Enforcement waved his hand and said, "If you have to go, then go. Don't worry about your family. We will keep an eye on those rascals. They will be fine." Lu Renhuang thought about it for a while. Then, he asked with hope, "Are you going to find Ling? "Yes and no," Lu Li explained. "I promised the devil that I would do something for her in the third heaven. Also, I have reached a bottleneck and I want to go there to try my luck. Well, I can also see if I can bring my sister back." "Okay, go." Lu Renhuang waved his hand. Then, He thought of something and sighed with regret. You bastard, you cannot have a descendant for the Lu family. What is wrong with you? Do you want to ask the devil? Well, I don't think it is appropriate. Luli was speechless. How could he ask the devil about this? After all, the devil was a woman and she was unmarried. Luli raised his eyebrows. He put on a mocking smile and said, Father, how about marrying another concubine? You bastard! Lu Renhuang frowned. He blushed and said, Go and talk to your wives. Luli left with a smile. Noticing that Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Lu Xingyang were looking at him, Lu Renhuang was even more embarrassed. He cupped his fists and said, Grandpa, Father, I will go and cultivate now. Wait! Lu Xingyang asked tentatively, Your Majesty, are you really not going to consider what Lier said? Luli walked into the backyard with heavy step. It was easier for him to talk to Lu Renhuang, but it was hard for him to talk to Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiushue. When he walked into the backyard, he saw that everyone was there, basking in the sun and chatting. When they saw Luli coming in, they all stood up with joy. Everyone's here. I don't have to call them one by one. Luli walked over and took the tea from Qi Shi'er. He took a sip but said nothing. Qi Shi'er and Prajna were confused. Bai Xiaoshuang went behind Luli to massage his shoulders. Only Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiushue looked at each other, feeling something was off. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Luli said nothing. Jiang Qiling sighed and said, Darling, is there something else? Are you going out for a while? Going out? Bai Xiaoshuang, who was massaging Luli's shoulders, stopped. She asked in panic, Darling, where are you going? How long are you going to be gone? Alas! Luli sighed. His arrival in the divinity and the second heaven had made Bai Xiaoshuang and the others anxious. They reacted so much when they heard that he was going out, but how could Luli hide this from them? He forced a smile and patted Bai Xiaoshuang's hands. At the same time, he winked at Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiushue and said, I am going out to do something for the devil. I will go to the third heaven and come back when I am done. Don't worry. The devil has arranged everything. Qin Zhan and Gan Lin will come with me. Nothing will go wrong. Where is the third heaven? Is it far? Bai Xiaoshuang did not pay much attention to these things. Neither did Qi Shi'er. She looked at Prajna with confusion. Prajna, Bai Qiushue, and Jiang Qiling looked uneasy. Since the devil has made arrangements, then I hope you can come back as soon as possible. After the time for 10 breaths, Jiang Qiling forced a smile. She looked at Prajna and Qi Shi'er and said, Don't worry. Gan Lin is the grandson of the axe demon. Qin Zhan will go with him. It will be fine. Luli took Jiang Qiling's hands with gratitude. Jiang Qiling was a good girl. She comforted Qi Shi'er and Prajna for him. What more could he ask for when he had a wife like this? Bai Qiushue pressed her lips and asked, When are you leaving, darling? In a month. Luli stood up, patted Bai Qiushue's shoulder and said, Take a seat. I will go to the Asmodean city to meet the devil. Before I leave, he has something to tell us. Go, darling. Don't worry about us. Bai Qiushue stood up and hugged Luli. She put on a smile, but it seemed to be a forced one. Luli could not bear to see them like this. He made up his mind and left. He took the teleportation formation to the Asmodean city. Axe Demon brought Luli to the island where the devil lived. The chubby princess was not here. Luli did not know where she had gone. He met the devil in the back garden. She was still sitting in the pavilion with her legs crossed, a book in one hand and Buddhist beads in the other. When Luli came in, the devil opened her eyes, looked at him, nodded and said, You have reached the peak of the third tribulation in 10 years. Not bad. But Luli, it will be difficult for you to cultivate the supreme immortal body. The further you go, the more difficult it will be. Even at the third heaven, there are only less than 10 who have mastered the supreme immortal body. Which path is not difficult? Luli forced a smile and said, Lord, I plan to go to the third heaven in a month. Gon Lin and Qin Zhan will go with me. When I get to the third heaven, I will try my best to get the book back for you. If I cannot, I will not go back to the second heaven. Have a seat. The devil waved her hand. A chair appeared out of nowhere. She said to the axe demon, You can leave now. I have something to tell Luli. The axe demon left. The devil didn't say anything. Instead, he took out a jade slip and handed it to Luli. Take a look. This is a map of the third heaven. It is not completely accurate, but the general topography is correct. Luli opened the jade slip at once. After a flash of white light, a vast picture appeared in his mind. He took a closer look and realized it was a huge map. 6 seas and 9 continents. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Luli put away the jade slip. His eyes were clear again. He asked with curiosity, Lord, how large is the third heaven? The great demon king turned the Buddhist beads in his hand. He raised his head and pondered for a moment before saying, It's not particularly big. Well, let me tell you this. The smallest continent in the third heaven is about 10 times the size of the second heaven. What? Even though Luli was prepared, he was still shocked. There were 9 continents in the third heaven, and the biggest one was about 10 times the size of the smallest one. Chapter 2138. Of the 9 continents and 6 seas, even the smallest one was 10 times the size of the second heaven. How big was the third heaven? Luli didn't know. Luli had found the Dragon Rebel Valley and the Broken Sword Mountain. The Dragon Rebel Valley was on the Flying Fire continent in the middle, and the Broken Sword Mountain was on the chilly winter continent in the south. The third heaven was a vast place. Luli didn't care about the other places apart from the Dragon Rebel Valley and the Broken Sword Mountain. He asked a critical question, Lord, where will we be teleported to the third heaven? The demon lord thought about it and said, If I am not mistaken, we will be at the Ziyang continent, the smallest one. Luli was speechless. The Ziyang continent was at the south, while the Flying Fire continent, where the Dragon Rebel Valley was located, was in the middle of the third heaven. There was a continent and a sea between them. How long would it take to get there? He didn't want to spend thousands of years on the road. Lord, Luli asked, how can I get to the third heaven? Can I open a portal? If I take teleportation formations, it will take me decades or even 100 years. Yes, I can. The demon lord nodded and said, but the space in the third heaven is very stable. If you want to teleport over a long distance, you must have a super large altar. Those who can build such altars must be from major forces. You will have to ask them for help. Buzzing, the demon lord took out a yellow bead, handed it to Luli and said, When you go to the Dragon Rebel Valley, give this bead to their family. They will give you the ancient scroll. When you go back to the Ziyang continent, you can go back to the second heaven. Alright, you can go now. Old Azura has already gone to the third heaven. He has built an altar in the Palace of All Life. Go to the Palace of All Life and tell Li Xiao Yao about it. You can use the teleportation altar to teleport to the third heaven. The demon lord waved his hand and closed his eyes. Luli didn't leave right away. He touched his nose and asked, Lord, is there anything you want to tell me? I am in the dark about the third heaven and I don't know anything. My death is not a big deal. I am just afraid that I might ruin your plan. What's there to teach? The great demon king didn't even open his eyes. He waved his hand and said, The third heaven is almost the same as the second heaven. It's just that the place is bigger, with more experts and more treasures. Of course, it's also more dangerous. It's useless to say more. Everything depends on your fate. If your fate isn't good, you might die immediately after reaching the third layer of heaven. It's useless no matter what I say. Go. Good luck and come back soon. Luli was speechless. He felt like the demon king was setting him up. casually finding an excuse to throw him to the third heaven and send him to his death. Did the great demon king dislike him that much? Even if he didn't warn him, he should at least give him some treasures to protect himself, right? The Asmodean lord said no more, and Luli was too embarrassed to continue. He cupped his fists and left. After Luli left, Axe Demon came back. He walked to the pavilion, bowed and said, "Lord." Axe Demon didn't say anything, but he was worried. The Demon King didn't open his eyes. He waved his hand and said, "I know what you are worried about. But a jade that is not cut will not be useful. The third heaven is the center of the world. If Luli and the others don't go to the third heaven, they will never become the most powerful warriors in the world. Don't blame us for not teaching them or giving them treasures. There are too many uncertainties in the third heaven. It is useless to teach them. It is better to let them go on their own. As for treasures, he already has a holy weapon fragment. How long do you think he can survive in the third heaven if we give him more? Haven't you heard of the saying that an innocent man will get into trouble because of his wealth? You are right, Lord." Axe Demon nodded and said nothing more. Now that he had decided to let Gon Lin follow Luli to the third heaven, there was no need to think too much. Life and death would be in the hands of the three. Alas, after Axe Demon left, the Demon King opened his eyes. He sighed and said, "Luli, don't blame me for getting you involved. You are a 7 tribulation chosen one. Your fate has been decided. Either you rise to the top or you sink into oblivion forever. Even if you stay in the second heaven, the other 6 will come for you. Only one of the 7 tribulation chosen one can survive. This is your fate." Rustle, rustle, rustle. After a moment, the Demon King opened his eyes again. Luli had come back, and he seemed to be a bit hesitant. The Demon King was getting impatient. He waved his hand and said, "I told you, there is nothing to explain. You will know when you get to the third heaven." "It is not about that." Luli bowed. He was even more embarrassed. His lips moved several times before he plucked up the courage to say, "Lord, I have been doing that for many years, but I don't have any children. Can you give me some advice?" "What do you mean by that? Children?" At first, the Demon King was confused. Then, she became angry. She stared at Luli coldly and said, "Bastard, you cannot get your wife pregnant. Why are you asking me about this? I am not a man. You can find a man to help you." Luli rolled his eyes. The Demon King's joke was not funny at all. He could not get his wife pregnant, so he had to find another man to help? Then would the child still be his? He didn't want to be cheated. "Lord, you are so good. You can do anything." Luli flattered and said with a smile, "Lord, do you have any top-level elixirs or something? Can you help me and have a child? My wife and the others will be happier. Even if something happens to me, the Lu family will have descendants." Luli really had no other choice. He had to be thick-skinned and ask the Demon King for help. If he could have a son and a daughter, Jiang Qiling and Bai Qiushue would be happier. They wouldn't have to think about it when he was away. "I can't do anything about it." The Demon King thought about it and waved her hand. "This is a problem with your body. Well, you can ask around at the third heaven. Maybe you can find a solution." "All right." Luli cupped his fists and left. The great Demon King's pretty face showed a trace of anger. Her chest heaved up and down. After a long time, she spat out a sentence. "This little bastard, you dare to ask me about this? Do you really think I can do anything? But I think it is because of the 7 trials of divine evil body that he cannot get pregnant. Such a heaven-defying body constitution is indeed unbearable for ordinary women. It's normal that it's hard for them to give birth." Luli didn't cultivate after he came back from the Asmodean city. He spent all his time with Qi Shi'er and Qiushue Prujin. He even took some time to teleport to the divinity to talk to Pan Yuqin, Ling Qinyan and the others. Luli set off with Gon Lin and Qin Zhan at the end of a month. The axe demon opened the space gate in person to send them to the Palace of Life. Ha ha! Li Xiaoyao welcomed Lu Li and the others in person. After learning the purpose of their visit, Li Xiaoyao said with a smile, "Before our forefather went to the third heaven, he said that you would go there as well. I didn't expect it to be so soon. Young Master Qin and young Master Gan are going as well? They can take care of each other. Lu Li, our forefather said that you can go to the third heaven to look for him. He has been there for several years. I think he has established himself at the Ziyang mainland." Okay. Lu Li was wondering who to find to open the space gate to the Flying Fire continent. Azura was at the fourth tribulation realm. He should be able to establish himself at the third heaven soon. By then, it would be much easier to ask Azura for help. Chapter 2139. Lu Li and the others settled down in the Palace of Life. Li Xiaoyao needed to make some arrangements. The altar to teleport to the third heaven had been built. That being said, activating it would consume a large amount of materials, and it would take several days. Lu Li and the others didn't mind spending a few days here. They settled down in peace. Axe Demon took Gan Lin away and told him again. Lu Li went back to his room to have a good sleep so that he could be at his peak. However, he could not fall asleep when he went back to his room. After all, he was going to an unknown place full of dangers. He might not be able to come back after this trip. The Ziyang land was too far away from the Flying Fire land. There was a continent and a vast ocean between them. What was more, the Ziyang land was large, 10 times the size of the second heaven. If he could not activate the spatial portal, it would take him years to teleport from city to city. Dragon Rebel Valley, Lu Li murmured. A yellow bead appeared in his hand. He looked at it carefully, curious. What was this bead? Could he trade with the Dragon Rebel Valley for the ancient scroll by showing this bead? Buzzing, Lu Li released some divine energy. The bead glowed. Lu Li could use psychic power to check. He was surprised. He realized that the bead was an interspatial artifact with a large space inside. Ancient scroll. Lu Li's eyes glowed. There was a page of ancient scroll in the empty space. It seemed that the Asmodean and the warriors of the Dragon Rebel Valley were exchanging ancient scrolls. What? Lu Li checked the space and found a small stamp. The stamp looked familiar. Lu Li took it out after some thoughts. A small seal appeared in his hand. This small seal looked like a small mountain. The runes on the stamp looked familiar to Lu Li. He took a closer look. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes. Buzzing. He took out the mountain. The mountain and the stamp glowed at the same time. Then, they flew toward each other and bumped into each other. There was no explosion. After a white glare, the stamp vanished into the mountain. Master, this is the 7th mountain. Little Six's voice rang in Lu Li's mind. Lu Li was confused. There were 9 mountains in total. Back then, some were destroyed and the whereabouts of the other 3 were unknown. He didn't know that there was one in the yellow bead. Oh right, Lu Li yelled in surprise. He met an old man at the Omen Island who saw through the 9 strange mountains and said that there was one on the Omen Island. Lu Li didn't know that the 9 strange mountains was in the hands of the Demon Lord. This. Lu Li was troubled. Was the mountain a gift from the Asmodean Lord? Or was it placed in the yellow bead to be exchanged with the people of the Dragon Rebel Valley? If he had used it to exchange for an ancient scripture, would the people of the Dragon Rebel Valley refuse to exchange it after he had fused with it? Buzz, Lu Li took out that page of the book and put on a forced smile after several glances. There were the words of the devil on the page, and it was written clearly, "Do not touch this page of the book." She gave him that mountain. Take this page of the book and exchange it with the warriors of the Dragon Rebel Valley. Everything is under the control of the great Demon King. Lu Li forced a smile. It seemed that the Demon King already knew that he had the 9 Wonders Mountain. The great Demon King didn't want to steal the treasure, or else the 9 strange mountains would have long been gone. That being said, both the Great Demon King and the Axe Demon knew that holy weapons were more powerful than imperial weapons. Even the Great Demon King didn't come for it. Clearly, she was not in need of treasures. Or maybe, given her abilities, she was not interested in the holy weapon. Little 6. Since the mountain was a gift from the Demon King, Luli didn't hesitate to take it. He sent a message to the artifact spirit of the mountain. How much more powerful is it after fusing with the mountain? A lot. Little 6 replied with certainty. Now, warriors below the Emperor realm can hardly shatter the mountain. Our attacks have been improved as well. Our rain of fire and wind blades have been improved by 3 times. We can use Woodbine now. If we can find the other 2 mountains, we can defeat warriors below the Emperor realm. Emperor realm? Luli frowned and asked, is that the Emperor realm a warrior at the 3rd heaven? Yes. Little 6 replied. Luli asked with more curiosity, is the Emperor realm a realm? What kind of abilities can be considered at the Emperor realm? I don't know. Little 6 didn't understand. He replied, I only know that the first master, Emperor Mu, was at the Emperor realm. I can defeat everyone below the Emperor realm. Emperor Mu didn't have to do anything. That strong? Luli was shocked. At the same time, he was excited. If he could find the other 2 mountains, he would have a complete Emperor weapon. However, the Mountain of 9 Wonders was broken up. To find the other 2 mountains was like looking for a needle in a haystack. This was not something that could be forced. It was up to fate. Luli put away the mountain. It was not the right time to experiment. He would have to find a chance in the 3rd heaven. Lying on the bed, Luli was in a daze, thinking about Jiang Qiling, by Qiushuan Prujna. He also thought about Little White. Ling Qinyan had been sending people to look for Little White, but to no avail. He wondered if Little White was killed or taken away by that mysterious powerful warrior. The small divinity had many secrets. For example, who was the mysterious warrior that took Little White away? Who was the mysterious warrior that taught Luli the way to fly in the void? Why would someone from the Dragon Rebel Valley appear at the Mountain of Dragons? Luli had a feeling that the divinity was full of secrets that he could not find out. Those mysterious experts were elusive. No one knew where they came from. When did they go missing? Why could the devil not go to the 3rd heaven? The Axe Demon said that the devil had offended a super warrior of the 3rd heaven? But why didn't that warrior come down to kill the devil? Also, why didn't the Phoenix Queen and the Zhangsun family of the 3rd heaven send powerful warriors down? Was it really as the devil said, that the 2nd heaven had its own rules and that warriors from the 3rd heaven would be suppressed when they came down? There were too many secrets and too many things that Luli could not figure out. Somehow, Luli had a feeling that there was a mysterious hand behind the scenes controlling his life and the direction of his life. However, the hand never showed up. Luli could not figure it out no matter how hard he tried. Luli fell into a deep sleep after his mind wandered for half a night. He slept for 2 days. When he woke up, he felt refreshed. Luli sat in meditation for half a day. Someone called him. The teleportation altar was ready and it was time for them to set off. Luli followed Li Xiaoyao to a mysterious valley. Outside the valley were warriors. In the valley was a huge altar with a diameter of more than 1,000 feet. Luli and the other 2 walked in. Gan Lin's eyes were red. He dropped to one knee and said, "Grandpa, I cannot be a filial son. Please, take care." The Axe Demon smiled. He was not sad about leaving. He waved his hand and said, "Go. Remember what I told you. Luli, you too. You must keep a low profile when you go to the 3rd heaven. Only by staying alive can there be hope. Stay alive is the goal. Nothing else matters. Stay alive, and come back." The Axe Demon said, "Stay alive." Even though he pretended to be fine, he was actually worried about the 3 of them dying. Chapter 2140. Third Heaven, Ziyang Continent, Frozen Valley. Rather than calling it a valley, it would be better to call it a huge basin. It was surrounded by huge mountains that pierced through the clouds, so the low-lying area in the middle looked like a valley. The ground of the valley and the surrounding mountains were all covered with ice. This was a world of ice. The temperature here was so cold that it was bone-chilling. There were many people here, walking in and out of the caves in the mountains. Many chariots were flying around in the sky. On the chariots were armored warriors with spears in their hands. Buzzing, in an open space in the valley, an altar lit up. After a while, 3 people showed up. As soon as they showed up, they shivered. A white-haired young man was better. The other 2 shivered out of instinct, feeling cold. Is this the third heaven? How come it is so cold? Gan Lin shrank his neck. At his realm, he was immune to cold and heat. How come he was shivering as soon as he arrived? So many people? So many warriors of the third tribulation, Qin Zhan said in a low voice. His eyes were filled with excitement. It was cold here, but he could stand it. Looking at the people walking around and the warriors flying in the sky, he was excited. Luli said nothing. As soon as he was teleported here, he had been observing the situation. The valley was large, with a radius of at least tens of thousands of miles. There were many people as well. Luli could see thousands of people and hundreds of warriors in the sky. Of course, some were not purebred. For example, there were beastmen with human bodies and bare head. There were some strange people with eyes and wings on their back. Luli also saw people who were as thin as toothpicks and whose hands and feet were thicker than their bodies. There were few strange people. Most of them were normal human beings with strong qi and energy. There were warriors of the third tribulation everywhere and only dozens at the peak of the second tribulation. The warriors above were all warriors of the third tribulation. Some warriors who seemed to be commanders were as strong as the axe demon. Whoosh! A chariot flew down. The 10 warriors on the chariot landed next to Luli and the other 2. Qin Zhan and Gan Lin were nervous, but Luli was not. He cupped his fists and saluted. Greetings, lords. Those warriors were cold, but they had no killing intent. They didn't seem to care about Luli and Gan Lin. This meant that there were many people teleporting up from the lower planes, and they were used to it. A purple-haired middle-aged martial artist glanced at the 3 and said, "Which realm are you from? Do you have a Layer 3 identity token?" Which realm? Luli was confused. He thought about it and explained, "We were teleported here from the second heaven. We don't have a token." The purple-haired middle-aged man frowned and said, "There are thousands of realms in the second heaven. Don't you know what your realm is called?" "A few thousand." Luli, Qin Zhan, and Gan Lin looked at each other in surprise. The 3 of them did not know what universe they had come to. "All right." Seeing the doubt in the eyes of the 3, the purple-haired middle-aged man was too lazy to ask. He took out 3 tokens and said, "These are your identity tokens of the ice-sealed valley. After serving in the valley for 100 years or digging out 10,000 ice heart crystals, you can leave. Remember, you are not allowed to fight in the valley. If there are any disputes, go to the dueling arena to settle it. Whoever dares to fight in the valley will be killed without mercy." Serving? Luli frowned. When he came to the divinity from the 9 universes, he also did hard labor. He didn't know that he had to serve in the third heaven as well. He glanced over the altars nearby and wondered, did some super-powerful warrior change the rules on purpose when they were teleported here? Many people from the second heaven would be teleported here when they came to the third heaven. The good thing was that they could get free labor. They had just arrived at the third heaven and knew nothing. They didn't know anything and didn't dare to say anything. Luli winked at the other 2 and the 3 accepted the order at the same time. The purple-haired middle-aged man nodded with satisfaction. He waved his hand and asked a warrior to take the 3 to settle down. He also told them about the situation in the ice-sealed valley. The three were taken to a small cave, and the warrior told them about the situation along the way. Luli learned that the ice-sealed valley was the territory of a nearby lord, Sun Xiong. To serve here, one had to hand in one piece of ice heart crystal every month, or else their service would be prolonged. If they could hand in 10,000 pieces of ice heart crystal, they could leave immediately. The warrior also showed Luli and the others the ice heart crystal. As soon as the crystal came out, the temperature dropped. Luli and the others could see that the space around the crystal seemed to be frozen. There are many mines in the mountains around here. The warrior explained indifferently, you can go into the mines by yourself. No matter what you do, as long as you can dig out ice heart crystals. Look at the biggest castle. You have to go there every month to hand in ice heart crystals. The warrior waved his hand and was about to leave when Qin Zhan stopped him with a smile. A ring appeared in his hand and Qin Zhan said in a low voice, "My lord, this is a small token of my appreciation." The warrior's cold face relaxed a bit. He checked with psychic power and threw the ring on the ground. He snorted and said, "Origin stones from the lower realms are all rubbish. Nobody would want them even if they were thrown on the ground in the third heaven." Qin Zhan gave out 10 million pieces of divine origin gold, but the warrior just threw it on the ground. So, divine origin gold from the second heaven was useless in the third heaven. Luli thought of something. He took out a piece of divine origin gold and handed it over. "My lord, can you see if this is still useful?" The warrior opened the box quietly, and then it disappeared in his hand. He nodded and said, "Not bad. There are some good things in your universe." Buzzing, Luli took out a portrait and said to the warrior, "My lord, we have a senior who came here a few years earlier than us. His nickname is Old Azura. Have you ever seen him?" "That man." The warrior took a few glances, thought about it and nodded. "I think there is such a man. He was at the fourth tribulation realm. He only stayed in the ice valley for a month before he left." "That fast?" Luli and the other two looked at each other in shock. He could get 10,000 ice heart crystals in a month? Seeing that the warrior was about to leave again, Luli made up his mind and took out another piece of divine origin gold and asked, "My lord, how come my senior could leave so fast? Is there a shortcut?" Luli didn't want to stay here for more than 100 years. If Old Azura could leave in a month, they could find a shortcut as well. They were going to the Dragon Rebel Valley, which meant they had to cross a continent and an ocean. If they were stuck here for more than 100 years, it would take them tens of thousands of years to get to the Dragon Rebel Valley. "You want to get out quickly?" The warrior grinned and said, "It is easy to say and difficult at the same time. The reason why that senior of yours left so quickly was because he went to the dueling arena and made a bet with someone else, using the ice heart crystal as a wager. He won 5 fights in a row and earned 10,000 ice heart crystals. At first, he suppressed his abilities to the peak of the third tribulation realm. Many people were fooled, gambled." Luli, Gonlin and Qin Zhan's eyes glowed. Luli was the most suitable candidate for gambles. Chapter 2141. Bang bang bang! Thousands of miles below the ice valley, from a mine came some muffled noises. 3 people were attacking a rock. They were strong, but the rock was so hard that they had been attacking for the time for 1 incense stick to burn, and yet, the rock was not cracked. Boom! After the time for half an incense stick to burn, the rock was cracked. Inside was a white crystal which was surrounded by cold air. The space around the crystal was about to be frozen. Whoosh! A hand reached out. As soon as the hand came close to the white crystal, it was frozen. But the crystal was put into the interspatial ring. The 5th one. Luli sighed. The ice on his hand melted after he used his cultivation method. It had been 6 days in the mine, and they had only found 5 ice heart crystals. Luli had asked Blood Fairy to search around. If they had to rely on psychic power, it would be a miracle if they could find one ice heart crystal in 6 days. Ice heart crystals were easy to find, but it was difficult to dig them out. The rock outside the ice heart crystal was so hard that it would take a long time to crack it open. The rock must be as hard as a piece of artifact. Luli had the relic. If he used the relic, the rock could be cracked. But could the relic be used? The relic was too powerful. Once it was used, the entire valley would know. Luli would suffer a miserable death. They had been here for 6 days and they met some people in the mine. The 3 of them wanted to get some information. However, the people here paid no attention to them. When they came closer, they would show hostility. If the 3 of them did anything, they might resort to violence. They could not do anything in the valley, but in the mine, they could. They saw many skeletons in the mine. The 3 of them did not dare to go deeper in the mine for fear that someone might lay a hand on them. The mine extended in all directions and the rock was as hard as iron. Even if there was a fight underground, no one would know. Nobody would be able to find out if they killed someone and wandered around underground. Luli had exchanged 2 pieces of elixirs for 2 pieces of information. He did not have enough elixirs to ask the warriors for more information. Therefore, the 3 of them knew nothing about the 3rd plane. They had to go down to the mine to dig out some ice heart crystals. Old Shura stayed there for a month before leaving. The soldier said that he went to gamble and won 10,000 ice heart crystals. Luli and the other 2 were ready to take this route as well. Since they were going to make a bet, they would need some capital, right? Without the ice heart crystal, how would others bet with you? Let's continue digging. We have to get at least a few dozen ice heart crystals. Luli waved his hand. Blood Fairy sensed an ice heart crystal up ahead. Luli and the other 2 hurried over. They sensed it and found that the ice heart crystal was hidden deep inside. To dig it out, they would have to break the stones more than 100 feet deep, and it would take them an hour. Let's dig. Luli didn't dare to take out the relic iron or the seal of the Dust King. He didn't dare to use the cauldron of 1,000 transformations that he got from Yun Kaiwe. He had to rely on his fist. Gonlin and Qinzhan also didn't dare to use their secret treasures. They hadn't figured out anything in the 3rd heavenly layer yet. If they revealed their treasures, it would be very easy for others to covet them. After an hour, the 3 of them finally cracked open the stone for more than 100 feet. An ice heart crystal appeared in the crack. Qinzhan and Gonlin were not strong enough, so they had to rely on Luli to get it. Whoosh! Right at that moment, the air suddenly trembled. Then, a black whip came out and grabbed the ice heart crystal in the crack, ready to leave. What? Luli and the other 2 were worried. They had worked so hard to dig out the ice heart crystal. Someone dared to take it from them? Luli had told himself to keep a low profile in the 3rd heavenly layer. That being said, he was not so cowardly that he would put up with others when they bullied him. Luli reached out with one hand and grabbed the black whip. He exerted his strength. The space trembled as a dark figure snuck out. Hiss, hiss, it was an old man. His chi and energy were faintly discernible. Luli could not tell his realm. He was skinny and only skin and bones. His eyes were filled with viciousness that could make people shudder. He threw Luli a few glances and said with a strange smile, "Kid, why are you grabbing my whip? Do you want to fight? Fighting is forbidden in the Ice Valley." Both Qinzhan and Gonlin were enraged by the old man's accusation. But they knew they could not act rashly. They had to listen to Luli. This time, both Patriarch Qin and the Axe Demon had told them to follow Luli at the 3rd heavenly layer and listen to him. Luli didn't let go of the whip. He said with a light smile, "Sir, we have worked so hard to dig out an ice heart crystal. It is not right of you to just take it from us." "What do you mean by taking?" The black-robed old man sneered and said, "I just arrived nearby and saw an ice heart crystal in the crevice. This divine item belongs to the fated. Who can you blame for being a step slower than me?" "Sir," Are you sure you want to pester me endlessly? Luli didn't waste time with him. He said with killing intent in his eyes, I have 5 more ice heart crystals in my interspatial ring. Sir, if you think you have the ability, you can take them all. Nice. A glint of viciousness flashed in the old man's eyes. He disappeared in a gust of wind. That whip twisted and moved toward Luli like a poisonous snake. Luli! Gan Lin and Qin Zhan shouted nervously. They took out their treasures and were ready to take action. Luli waved his hand and then smashed at the space in front of him with his fist. Boom! A man appeared in the void. His fist bumped into Luli's. Luli trembled, but the old man was smashed away. There was blood coming out from the corner of his mouth. Hiss, hiss, the old man crawled up. He reached out his hand and the whip that was about to wrap around Luli flew back. The old man sneered and said, My young friend, you are quite powerful. I have misjudged you. Sorry for offending you. Goodbye. Did I say you can go? Luli showed no mercy. A saber appeared in his hand. It was not the 7-star sword, but the one transformed from the cauldron of 1,000 transformations. He stared at the old man and said, If you dare to move, I will decapitate you. Do you believe me? No need, no need. The old man put on a flattering smile. He walked over in strides, stood dozens of feet in front of Luli and said, Young master, why are you so hot-tempered? Anger harms the liver. Just now, this old man was just joking with you. I have an ice heart crystal here. How about this old man apologizes to you? Qin Zhan and Gan Lin glanced at each other. Both of them were somewhat speechless. Wasn't this old man's face changing too fast? He was a typical villain that bullied the weak and feared the strong. Luli remained calm. He even activated the trace of Tao to be on guard. Making sure that the old man was not going to do anything, Luli said coldly, Keep your icy heart crystal. I have something to ask you. Answer me honestly and I will let bygones be bygones. Sure, sure. The old man smiled and said with a face full of servility, What do you want to ask, young master? There is no harm in asking. This old man will tell you everything I know. Okay. Chapter 2142. The old man's name was Old Third. He had lived in the frozen valley for many years, tens of thousands of years. It was not that he couldn't leave the frozen valley, but he liked living here because he could get ice heart crystals. The ice heart crystal was a very good material for artifact refining. The stones around the ice heart crystal were very hard, so one could imagine how hard the ice heart crystal was. One ice heart crystal could be sold for 100 divine stones. Divine stones were the common currency of the third heaven. Divine stones could be consumed directly to replenish divine energy. Divine stones could be used to buy all kinds of treasures, divine pellets, books and weapons. As long as you had enough divine stones, you could even buy emperor weapons. As for how to sell the ice heart crystal, Old Third didn't say and Luli didn't ask. Wherever there was light, there would be darkness. The Ice Heart Valley was large and had existed for many years. Naturally, there would be corruption. In order to sneak the Ice Heart crystal out, Old Third Heaven had colluded with some warriors and even commanders. The Frozen Valley was the territory of Sin Tu, a lord of the Ziyang continent. Lord of the Third Heaven was a powerful figure. There were 3 emperors at the Ziyang continent and each of them had tens of thousands of lords under their command. In other words, the lords were only second to the emperors. 3 emperors? Luli didn't know that there were so many emperors at the third heaven. He had thought that there were only a few emperors at the third heaven. He didn't know that even the smallest continent had 3 emperors. Luli asked in surprise, How many emperors at the third heaven are there? About 40 or 50. Old Third said. Then he added, There are many ancient families and races at the third heaven. Their holy masters and patriarchs are no weaker than emperors. So, there should be 200 or 300 emperors. 200 or 300. Luli gasped. They didn't know that there were so many emperors at the third heaven. However, Luli and the others had a vague idea about emperors. Luli thought about it and asked, "What is the emperor realm? How many tribulations?" "You can't say how many tribulations," Old Gui explained. "There are too many people with special abilities in the third heaven. Many special races cultivate strange techniques, and some powerhouses don't go through the heavenly tribulations at all, so the number of tribulations is not accurate. Let's put it this way. The overall combat strength of an overlord should be comparable to a 7th Tribulation Realm expert, while a lord is comparable to a 6th Tribulation Realm expert." 7th Tribulation, Luli and the other two were dumbfounded. Originally, they thought that warriors of the third heaven were only a little stronger than warriors of the second heaven. They didn't expect the gap to be so wide. A 4th Tribulation Master was already a high mountain for them, but they didn't expect that there would be a 7th Tribulation Master in the third heaven. There were still hundreds of them. A 4th Tribulation Expert was already ridiculously strong, so how strong would a 7th Tribulation be? It was simply unimaginable. Luli and the other two said nothing for a while. Gon Lin asked in a low voice, "Are there any above the Emperor realm? The strongest in the third heaven is the Great Emperor?" "Yes," Elder Gui said with certainty. "Above the Great Emperor is the Saint Emperor. But there are no more Saint Emperors in the third heaven. The last one passed away 60,000 years ago. The Emperor realm is the strongest, but there is a gap between them. Currently, there are 3 Saint Emperors recognized as the strongest in the third heaven: Reincarnation Emperor, Freedom Emperor, and Candle Heaven Emperor." Luli and the other two memorized the names. Qin Zhan asked, "What about the heavens above? I thought there are 7 heavens. Are there any Saint Emperors in the heavens above?" "The heavens above all collapsed." Elder Gui rolled his eyes. Everyone in the third heaven knew about this. He explained to the 3 patiently. Originally, there weren't so many powerful warriors in the third heaven. More than 1,000,000 years ago, the heavens above all collapsed. Many powerful families and families swarmed into the third heaven. There were so many powerful warriors in the third heaven. Saint Emperors! Luli was secretly excited. He had a fragment of a Saint Emperor's divine weapon in his hand. It was a fragment of the most powerful weapon in the world. If Saint Emperors are the most powerful in the world, how come their weapons are broken? Luli could not figure it out. Saint Emperors were so powerful. Who could kill them? If they died of natural causes, then how could their weapons be broken? "We want to go to the Flying Fire Continent. Do you know any shortcuts?" Luli asked the most critical question. There were too many warriors at the third heaven. Their abilities were not enough. They had to find a way to get to the Flying Fire Continent as soon as possible and finish their business. Flying Fire Continent? Elder Gui was surprised. Then he put on a bitter smile and said, "Young masters, don't you think you are overthinking? Without a powerful warrior to take you there, you will never be able to get to the Flying Fire Continent." "Are you kidding me?" Qin Zhan pulled a long face. No matter how far the Flying Fire Continent was, they could fly there in tens of thousands of years. Gon Lin was not convinced as well. He said coldly, "We can teleport from city to city. Even if it takes time, we can go there for the rest of our lives." "Teleportation?" Elder Gui grinned and said, "Teleportation is expensive. Let me put it this way. I have been in the ice-ceiling valley for tens of thousands of years, and all my wealth is only enough to teleport half of the Ziyang continent. Most importantly, you will have to cross a sea region called the Silver Flame Sea region. There are no teleportation arrays in this region. Let alone the 3 of you, even a lord would die if they tried to cross the Silver Flame Sea region alone." "What?" The 3 of them were taken aback. Lords were as powerful as warriors of the 6th Tribulation. How could they not be able to go across a sea? How dangerous was the sea? Even Luli was at a loss. Lords could not go across the Silver Flame Sea. Would they never be able to go to the Flying Fire Continent? If so, why would the devil assign him such a task? Then can we open the spatial gate? Luli was not ready to give up. He asked, "Can't the superfamilies open the spatial gate? If we ask the superfamilies to open the spatial gate, can we go to the Flying Fire Continent directly?" Qin Zhan and Gan Lin were hopeful. According to Elder Gui, it would take them hundreds of thousands of years to reach the Flying Fire Continent safely if they didn't go through other channels. Just the thought of traveling for hundreds of thousands of years was horrifying. Spatial gate? Elder Gui sneered and said, "Even if a powerful warrior can open the spatial gate, he can only go across half of the Ziyang continent. Do you think that powerful warrior will go all the way with you? Opening the spatial gate requires many top-level materials. Do you think you can afford it? Also, if you want to open the spatial gate all the way, you will have to go across the Silver Flame Sea. Even if you ask a lord to open the spatial gate, it will be difficult to go across the Silver Flame Sea. Unless what?" Seeing that Elder Gui didn't want to continue, Qin Zhan was anxious. He said, "Old man, don't hesitate. Be frank. Unless you can ask an emperor." Chapter 2143. Luli had acquired a lot of information from Patriarch Gui and some secrets of the Frozen Valley. It was not difficult to leave the Frozen Valley. However, many people didn't want to go out. Instead, they wanted to stay. Ice heart crystals were valuable. It was dangerous in the third heaven. One careless move could cost one's life. Why would they risk their lives when they could earn divine stones safely in the Frozen Valley? There were many opportunities to earn ice heart crystals in the Frozen Valley. Gambling was the best way. However, gambling was also risky. If one was not careful, he would lose all his fortune. Ice heart crystals could be traded. For example, Luli could trade the 1,000 Transformations Cauldron for tens of thousands of Ice Heart crystals. After all, the 1,000 Transformations Cauldron was a powerful artifact. But Luli wouldn't trade it. Many of the people below would choose the path of gambling. However, they would often lose their pants and lose all their treasures. There were even people who died on the dueling field, losing their lives. Old Azura was an exception. At first, Old Azura suppressed his battle prowess to the Third Tribulation realm. He took out one of his treasures and exchanged it for 500 Ice Heart crystals. Then, he gambled and won several matches in a row. He then left Frozen Valley with more than 10,000 Ice Heart crystals. Let's keep digging. It was pointless to gamble with so little capital. Even if the odds were 10 times, it would only be 50 Ice Heart crystals. If they went to fight, they would be noticed. By then, it would be harder to win and the odds would be lower. The three of them kept on digging. They were not in a hurry. They could familiarize themselves with the third heaven by staying in the Frozen Valley for a month or two. Patriarch Gui's words made the three of them feel heavy. Asking for help from an emperor? Not even Een Rulan was qualified to ask for help from an emperor, let alone the three of them, Old Azura, or even Een Rulan. Well, let's find Old Azura first. If we can't find him, we will go to the Broken Sword Mountain to find Een Qingxi and Een Rulan. If they can't do anything, it will be difficult. Luli murmured to himself and frowned. The Broken Sword Mountain was at the chilly winter continent. Even though the chilly winter continent was next to the Ziyang continent, it was on another continent. If he went to the chilly winter continent, he would have to take a long detour. If Een Qingxi and Een Rulan couldn't do anything, his trip would be in vain. Something's wrong. Since the Een clan was on the Broken Sword Mountain and the chilly winter continent, she should have to go through the Purple Sun continent to get to the second heaven, right? Since Een Rulan could go to the second heaven at will, she must have some tricks up her sleeve. If he went to her and Een Qingxi, he might be able to find a way. It's decided then. Luli nodded and made up his mind. He would stay in the frozen valley for a month or two and try to figure out the situation of the third heaven as much as possible. Then, he would leave and look for the old Azura. If he couldn't find it, he would set off for Broken Sword Mountain. Luli told the plan to Gonlin and Luli. Gonlin's eyes glowed. They had witnessed the power of Chingxi, the most powerful warrior on the list. She could fight against Yun Chueshua for such a long time at the Fourth Tribulation Realm. Since they were born in a third-layer heavenly clan, they would definitely have a way. Sending them to the Flying Fire Continent shouldn't be difficult, right? The three of them were full of enthusiasm and continued to search for ice heart crystals. They searched the mine for more than 10 days, day and night, but they only managed to dig out about 20 ice heart crystals. Including the ones from before, there were only 30 ice heart crystals in total. Never mind. Let's go and gamble. Luli shook his head. Digging like this was too slow. What was more, they were tens of thousands of miles underground. What if they ran into some powerful warriors and got them killed if they went any deeper? The three of them walked out of the mine and went back to their own cave. Luli fell asleep at once. He needed a good rest before he went to the battleground. After a day's rest, the three of them were refreshed. They went directly to a big castle. This castle was the battleground and the most crowded place in the frozen valley. There were 2 sergeants in the castle, but they didn't pay attention to the three of them. The three of them walked straight in and found a portal. As soon as they stepped in, they found themselves in a strange small world. They had learned this from Brother Gue. There was not only the battleground, but also a chamber of commerce, a tavern and even a brothel. As long as there were divine stones and ice heart crystals, anything could be bought here. This was the most crowded place in the entire frozen valley. Of course, this place was run by the Sun family. At its peak, there were hundreds of thousands of people in the Ice Heart Valley. With so many people, they would go crazy if they didn't find some entertainment. After glancing around, Luli and the two of them went to the largest castle. That was the battleground and the most crowded place in this small world. Originally, the battleground was a place for the laborers to settle their disputes. But gradually, it changed and became a casino. Gambling was the most addictive. It could make people rich overnight, but it could also make people lose everything they had accumulated over the years in one night. Walking into the battleground, Luli found it very lively. There were at least thousands of people watching. Many of them were screaming and some were red-eyed, shouting "Kill him" and "Kill him." As soon as Luli and the two of them came in, they were attracted by a shield in the middle of the battleground. The shield was not large, only with a radius of 2,000 feet. At the moment, 2 people were fighting inside. Both of them were heaven gods after 3 trials. Their eyes were bloodshot and they were fighting desperately. "Do the 3 of you want to bet?" A person quietly came up and said with a smile, "The red-haired guy wins, the payout is 1. 2, the black-haired guy wins, 2-1. The battle is not over yet, so you won't have a chance to place a bet later." Gon Lin and Qin Zhan glanced at each other. Both of them were slightly startled. The red-haired man was obviously about to lose. Wasn't this clearly gifting the Ice Heart crystal to them? Anyone would bet on the black-haired man. "There's no rush. Let's take a look first." Luli waved his hand. The man nodded and said, "Then, if you want to place a bet later, you can find me at any time. Everyone at the arena knows about this. Our banker will pay for it." Old Kuei said that there was a banker in the dueling field, and this person had a relationship with a big shot in the Icebound Valley. Otherwise, he would not be qualified to be the banker here. After that man left, Luli glanced over the field and whispered to them with a smile, "How about we have a bet?" The black-haired man was going to lose. How is that possible? Gon Lin didn't believe it, but Qin Zhan seemed to be thinking about it. The 3 of them watched for a while. Suddenly, the situation inside the shield was reversed. The black-haired middle-aged man suddenly released a very powerful skill and injured the red-haired old man in one move. Gan Lin was surprised. He didn't understand how the situation could be reversed so quickly. Lu Li explained with a smile, actually, for the two people inside, winning or losing has nothing to do with them. The banker has the final say on who wins and who loses. Whoever the banker wants to win will win. Do you understand? I see. Gan Lin was also a very smart man. He soon figured out the key point. Everything was under the control of the banker. Winning or losing was not in the field, but outside. So, no matter how we bet, we will lose. Gan Lin's expression changed. They had worked so hard to dig out 30 ice heart crystals. Would they lose all of them at once? Not necessarily. Lu Li shrugged and said, let's observe first. Later, I will fight in person. You all bet on me winning. Also, if I win 1 or 2 rounds, I think the banker will come and talk to me in person. P.S. In the blink of an eye, another year had passed. The spring festival was coming. Old Monster wished everyone a happy spring festival in advance. This year, he had written about 3 million words. It wasn't much, but it wasn't little either. He had been writing for 6 years. Day after day, year after year. He would be lying if he said he wasn't tired. He was physically and mentally exhausted. So, during the spring festival, Old Monster asked for leave from everyone. Of course, he wouldn't stop updating. These days, he would update twice a day. From the 1st to the 10th, he would update once a day. On the 11th, he would update as normal. He would rest and relax for a few days, and while he was at it, he would think about the plot of the Third Heaven. When Undying started writing, Old Monster had already decided on the Third Heaven. This was the grandest battlefield. This part of the plot was also Undying's most exciting chapter. Old Monster would work hard to write it well. Chapter 2144. The fight was over. Not long after that, the second round began. Usually, there wouldn't be so many duels. It was one after another. Clearly, someone had arranged this in advance. The two people on the stage were both 3 tribulation warriors, one at the middle stage and the other at the latter stage. One of them was a strong middle-aged man with high spirits. The skinny old man was clearly worried. His lips were pale and his eyes were filled with fear. Before the fight started, the two of them talked some nonsense. The strong middle-aged man scolded the skinny old man, telling the skinny old man to stop fighting if he was afraid of death and to kowtow and apologize. Dozens of people moved quickly and started collecting bet. Lu Li also saw many people taking out some dark purple stones or ice heart crystals to place their bet. After placing their bets, they would receive a special jade token. More people came to Lu Li, but Lu Li still didn't place a bet. After Gan Lin and the others left, Gan Lin approached Lu Li and said, "This time, we can bet on the skinny old man. This time, it will be another counterattack. Ha ha, if the old man wins, the payout will be 2 to 1. Clearly, they are trying to lure us to bet on the strong middle-aged man." Not necessarily. Gan Lin didn't know much about these despicable things, but Lu Li did. He said with a smile, "I just told you. Winning or losing is not decided in the arena, but outside the arena. The banker will decide the winner based on the number of bet. For example, if more people bet on the old man, the banker will say the middle-aged man will win. If not, the banker will say the old man will win. The banker will calculate and see which side they can make a profit." Gan Lin's eyes lit up and he said, "Then how about we see who wins by how much? Then we can bet on the side with less bets?" "The problem is," Lu Li said with a bitter smile, "sometimes the banker will go easy on you. He won't find the pattern for you. Otherwise, how can he win? 9 out of 10 gambles are cheating. The banker has the control. Any gambler who keeps on gambling will lose everything in the end." That works. Gon Lin and Qin Zhan looked at each other and were somewhat speechless. People like them who didn't understand the tricks inside, if they were to rashly gamble, they reckoned that they would lose everything in the end. In the end, they would go to gamble with others and die miserably, as expected. The winner this time was the strong middle-aged man. Those who had won were delighted, while those who had lost were cursing and swearing. Soon, the third round began and more people came to Lu Li and the other two to place their bet. Lu Li still didn't place a bet, but he stopped the one who placed the bet. Lu Li cupped his fists and said, "Brother, we would like to gamble. What should we do?" "Duel." The person who placed the bet glanced at Lu Li with a mocking smile and said coldly, "You don't have to go up. You can die easily. But your two brothers can go up and have some fun. Go to that corner. They are all people who wish to make a bet. Every time you make a bet, you will be given an ice heart crystal. However, it doesn't matter if you die or not." "Thanks a lot." Lu Li glanced over and found that there were dozens of people in the corner. There was also a man in a steward's uniform sitting there. Lu Li and the other two looked at each other and smiled. So many people were waiting for the fight. This was going to be fun. "I'm going." Lu Li gave all the icy heart crystals to Qin Zhan and said, "Later, just watch my eyes and act accordingly. When I tell you to place all your bets, you just do it. If I give this signal, then place all your bets on your opponent." Lu Li made some gestures. Qin Zhan nodded slightly. But he was a bit worried and asked, "Bet on my opponent to win? Will the dealer think I am cheating? At that time, will someone come looking for trouble?" "It doesn't matter." Lu Li shrugged and replied, "The dealer will come to me sooner or later anyway. Just do whatever you want." Lu Li walked to that corner, found the man in the steward's uniform and said, "Sir, I want to take part in the duel." "You?" The steward was surprised. The people who were waiting in line for the fight all put on cruel smiles. They looked at Lu Li as if he was a dead man. "Are you sure?" The steward looked at Lu Li coldly. It was more and more like he was looking at a dead man. Lu Li made up his mind. He made up his mind and said, "I am sure." "Okay." The steward said indifferently, "Each time you make a bet, you will get an icy heart crystal. However, it doesn't matter if you die or not." "Okay." Lu Li acted like he was ready to risk everything, which amused the warriors nearby. Many of them looked at Lu Li. One of them suddenly said, "Chief Steward Lu, can you arrange for me to play with this young man later?" "PFF," another old man spat and said, "Hawk, don't you have any shame? How can you bully a kid?" "Chief Steward Lu, I will fight with this young man." "Let go of this young man and let me do it." "Piss off. I have a special affinity with this young man." There were more than 20 people nearby. Lu Li was in high demand. They all wanted to fight with Lu Li. There was only one icy heart crystal for each fight. If a warrior of similar abilities were to fight with Lu Li, he might risk his life or even die. Therefore, to fight with Lu Li was equivalent to getting an icy heart crystal for free. Naturally, everyone wanted to fight with Lu Li. "Shut up!" Chief Steward Lu shouted coldly. He glanced over to the others. Seeing that no one said anything, he looked at the arena. After the time for one incense stick to burn, the fight was over. Chief Steward Lu pointed to a warrior at the initial stage of the third tribulation and said, "One-eyed, go and fight with him." Lu Li was surprised to see Chief Steward Lu pointing at him. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. He didn't expect that it would be his turn soon. He looked at his opponent and sensed his abilities. He had a better impression of this Chief Steward now. Clearly, this Chief Steward had taken care of Lu Li. He didn't arrange a powerful opponent. Lu Li walked onto the arena. A one-eyed man walked up. It was not that he was blind in the other eye. He only had one eye. Clearly, he was of a special race. Soon, the arena became lively. Seeing that Lu Li, a warrior at the second tribulation, dared to go up. People were mocking him. Then, many people became excited. They took the initiative to place their bet. Some even bet heavily on the one-eyed. They all knew that the one-eyed often fought. Even though his abilities were not particularly strong, his comprehensive abilities could be compared to the middle stage of the third tribulation. A warrior at the second tribulation would go up. Wasn't he giving them a free win? Such a pity. The odds for the one-eyed were low, 5-1. Naturally, Lu Li's odds were higher, 1-5. But even if the odds were 1-10, nobody would bet. Qin Zhan and others secretly investigated. They found that very few people bet on Lu Li. Even if there were, they only bet several ice heart crystals. Maybe they were just buying for fun. I bet that white-haired young man will win. Qin Zhan found the one who placed the bet and bet all 30 ice heart crystals. The one who placed the bet was a bit surprised. He knew that Qin Zhan and Lu Li were in cahoots with Lu Li. But the amount Qin Zhan bet was small. The one who placed the bet didn't mind. He took the ice heart crystals and gave Qin Zhan a jade talisman. How many ice heart crystals can I pawn? Qin Zhan suddenly took out the immortal demon tower. This was a secret treasure, a replica of an imperial weapon. It was a good one. The one who placed the immortal demon tower was shocked. He took it over and felt it carefully. Then he said, I can pawn 3,000 ice heart crystals. Chapter 2145. 3,000 ice heart crystals. If Lu Li won, then it would be 15,000 ice heart crystals. This was a large sum. Even though there were so many people in the hall and the gambling was quite lively, most of them were betting on dozens or hundreds. Few people would bet on thousands of ice heart crystals, unless it was a sure win or a loss made them lose their minds. The one who collected the bets narrowed his eyes. But he must have seen a lot. He returned the Tower of Immortal Demon to Qin Zhan, cupped his fists and said, I need to ask about this. Please wait a moment. Qin Zhan nodded. Gan Lin pouted and said, You are being a bit harsh. Qin Zhan smiled and replied, Lu Li will be noticed by the banker if he wins 1 or 2 rounds. If so, why don't we make some money while nobody knows about him? Why don't we do something that is sure to win? You are right. Gan Lin nodded. Now it was up to the banker to accept the bet. Lu Li had started the fight inside. The one-eyed man began to attack Lu Li. Lu Li kept stepping back, and there was even a trace of panic on his face. Russell, the one who placed the bet walked over and said, Young master, are you sure you want to bet on that treasure? Yes. Lu Li took out the Tower of Immortal Demon. The man took it over and gave Lu Li a jade token with 3,000 written on it. He put the tower away and added, Young master, if you want it back in the future, you can come to me anytime. But you will have to pay some interest. Okay. Qin Zhan waved his hand and looked at Lu Li. Now all he had to do was wait for the result so he could collect the ice heart crystals. The fight inside was getting more and more intense. The one-eyed man held an iron rod in his hand and kept stabbing at Lu Li. Every time, there would be a streak of rainbow. The shield inside was under attack, and it kept giving out rays of light. Lu Li was stabbed once. His armor cracked and blood oozed out. Clearly, Lu Li did it on purpose. If he had mobilized the energy in his acupoints to protect himself, this man's attack wouldn't have been able to break his defense. Bang, bang, bang. The one-eyed man's attacks came like a storm. Lu Li dodged to the left and right and dodged in embarrassment. He was wounded again. His armor was all cracked. He was stabbed for more than a dozen times. It was a miserable sight. It's almost done, right? His acting was on point. Lu Li noticed that many people were looking at him as if he were a dead man, which meant that he was acting well. Those people all thought that he was not good at fighting. Lu Li secretly let out some worms of the void which penetrated into the ground and then sneaked into the one-eyed's body. With a roar, He took out the 7-star saber and released the Slayer Ghost Slash. A sky-shaking beam of light lit up the sky. Next, the beam of light spun a few times in midair before heavily striking the one-eyed man. The one-eyed man's body was blasted away, and he slammed heavily into the barrier of light. The people outside the arena saw a one-eyed dragon tumbling down, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. His entire body was in so much pain that he was rolling on the ground, unable to resist at all. Immediately there was an uproar. Luli looked like he was going to die at any moment. How could he injure the one-eyed warrior with one move? That killer move did not seem to be particularly powerful, it was just somewhat strange. I admit defeat, I admit defeat. One-eyed howled. Then he looked at Luli and begged, Lord, please have mercy. Please have mercy. Buzzing, more than a dozen worms of the void crawled out from the one-eyed warrior's body, went underground and returned to Luli's body. Now that the one-eyed warrior had admitted defeat, Luli would not kill him. He was delighted. He walked down in strides and sat in a corner to tend to his wounds. Many people were swearing. Luli had unexpectedly won, and they had lost a lot of ice heart crystals. What was more, they didn't know how Luli won. Only a few dozens of people had a meaningful look in their eyes. 15,000 ice heart crystals. Qin Zhan and Gan Lin were overjoyed. They had been digging for half a month, and only got 30 ice heart crystals. Now Luli went up to fight and they made a bet. They had earned 15,000 ice heart crystals. Now one of them could leave the ice valley at any time. The person who opened this place was indeed very generous. He immediately delivered the immortal demon tower, and even delivered 15,150 ice heart crystals, not a single one less. Luli. Qin Zhan's eyes were burning with passion. He sent a message to Luli, I got 15,000 ice heart crystals. You go and fight another round. I will put the 15,000 ice heart crystals on the line. We will have enough. 15,000? Luli was surprised. He replied, You put the Tower of Immortal Demon on the line? Qin Zhan nodded without a trace. Luli secretly admired Qin Zhan's courage. A young master of a big family was different. He was so generous. Okay. Now that he had 15,000 ice heart crystals, one more round was enough. Luli healed his wounds for a while and pretended to stand up. He said to Chief Steward Lu, Sir, I want to continue the fight. Continue? Chief Steward Lu had a meaningful look in his eyes. He thought about it for a while and said, You heal your wounds first. I will arrange for you to fight later. Chief Steward Lu winked at a black-robed warrior in the field without leaving a trace. That warrior left the field quietly and went into a side chamber. In the side chamber sat an old man in a luxurious robe. On his back and on his legs there were two beautiful ladies massaging his shoulders and legs. The black-robed warrior walked in, cupped his fists and said, Second Master, something happened. The old man in a luxurious robe suddenly opened his eyes and asked, What is it? There are 3 young men here. The black-robed warrior explained. One of them seems to be at the second tribulation realm. Just now, he went up. His partner put up a treasure as collateral and won 15,000 ice heart crystals. Now that man is going to fight again. I think they will have to put down the 15,000 ice heart crystals again. The old man in a luxurious robe stood up and said with interest, I will go and have a look. The old man walked to the door of the side chamber. He glanced around and found Luli, Qin Zhan, and Gan Lin easily. He took a few glances and stepped back. He waved his hand and said, Let him fight, let them fight. Let the wild wolves come up and kill him. Wild wolves, the black-robed warrior showed a cruel smile. It seemed that Second Master was angry. Some time ago, they were fooled by Old Man Azura. Now, someone wanted to trick them again? Did they really think their ice heart crystals were easy to earn? What about the odds this time? The black-robed warrior was in a difficult position. If the odds were not good, they might suffer a loss this time. Second Master thought about it and said, "Let the wild wolves wear a mask. On the surface, he is only at the third tribulation realm. People outside will bet on the white-haired young man to win. We can make a fortune. Let's make the odds 1-1. Second Master is so wise." The black-robed old man cupped his fists and accepted the order. Second Master's plan was perfect. Now, everyone knew that Luli was pretending to be weak. If another warrior at the initial stage of the third tribulation realm was sent up, they would all bet on Luli. Chapter 2146. In the time for less than the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, Luli went on stage again. He hadn't even wiped off the blood on his body, which surprised many gamblers. Was he going to cheat them again, or was he going to throw the game? When Luli's opponent came on stage, the crowd was in an uproar. Luli's opponent was another warrior at the initial stage of the third tribulation. Even though Luli was covered in blood and looked half dead, everyone had seen how powerful he was. Was the dealer going to play the same trick twice? Did he think everyone was an idiot? Several powerful warriors sensed and made sure that Luli's opponent was only at the initial stage of the third tribulation. Many people didn't hesitate anymore. They bet on Luli directly. Of course, some people did the opposite. They thought the dealer was going to make an upset on purpose, so they bet on Luli's opponent. When Qin Zhan and Gan Lin saw that Luli's opponent was at the initial stage of the third tribulation, they didn't feel happy. Instead, they were surprised. The dealer couldn't be so stupid. They knew Luli was hiding his fighting capacity, and they would bet on him. Why would they send an average warrior of the third tribulation to fight Luli? Wasn't this giving them ice heart crystals? The dealer was not that stupid. There must be something wrong with this warrior of the third tribulation. I bet 15,000 ice heart crystals on the white-haired young man. After a while, Qin Zhan shouted. His voice was loud and attracted everyone's attention. Many people looked over. They were surprised to see Qin Zhan was unfamiliar. Qin Zhan was young, but he had so many ice heart crystals. Was he a member of some big family? Since he was so optimistic about Luli, it seemed that Luli was going to win. Many people who were not determined enough placed their bet. 15,000 ice heart crystals was not a small amount. It seemed that the dealer was going to lose a lot this time. Qin Zhan shouted in such a loud voice to attract everyone's attention. After all, 15,000 was not a small amount. He was afraid that the dealer would kill them secretly instead of paying up. The odds were 1-1, but it was enough. The three of them only needed 30,000 ice heart crystals to leave the frozen valley. More ice heart crystals would be meaningless. The three of them didn't forge artifacts and they didn't know where to get divine stones. I bet 5,000 ice heart crystals on the white-haired young man. An old man's faint voice resounded not far from Qin Zhan's group. The two of them glanced over and looked at each other in dismay. The one who placed the bet was someone familiar. It was the patriarch Gui that Luli met in the mine. This old man had fought with Luli before, so he knew about Luli's abilities. There was an endless stream of people placing their bets, but Luli, who was inside the shield, felt an indescribable pressure. It was a black-haired middle-aged man with the Wolf King mask. His eyes were cold and calm. Luli sensed danger from him. "Blood Fairy, set up the divine inscription dojo, quick!" Without any hesitation, Luli told Blood Fairy to sneak underground. There were divine glyphs in the ground. After some modifications, they could build a divine glyphs plaza. Luli felt some pressure in this battle. If he took out the godly metal, then there would be no suspense. However, he could not use the godly metal. Therefore, Luli had to ask Blood Fairy to build a plaza of divine runes to suppress the enemy. Blood Fairy had learned a new type of divine rune plaza. Not only could she seal off divine energy, but she could also attack the enemy's soul. Luli was not sure if it would work on this opponent. The man with the Wolf King mask did not make a move. Clearly, he was placing his bets on the people outside. Blood Fairy was building the Divine Rune Plaza. Luli would be happier if his opponent did not make a move. After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, almost all the people had placed their bet. The man with the Wolf King mask finally made a move. He cupped his fists and said, "Wolf, nice to meet you." Since the Wolf King was being so polite, Luli would not lose his composure. He cupped his fists and said, "Luli, nice to meet you." It would take some time for the Divine Rune Plaza to be ready. Luli did not mind. This time, Luli did not make the first move. He wanted to figure out the man's skills before making a move. Hoi! Wolf took action. A pair of hooks appeared in his hands. He dashed forward and reached Luli in an instant. There was no afterimage. Clearly, this was the fundamental principle of space. Luli could feel the fluctuation of space. Swish! Wolf swung the hook at Luli's neck. A surge of destructive energy came from the hook. This man had cultivated the fundamental principle of destruction. The hook glowed. Clearly, it was a piece of valuable artifact. He threw out the other hook stinger, which transformed into dozens of hooked stingers in the air and whizzed towards the back. With 2 fundamental principles released at the same time, this man's abilities had surpassed the initial stage of the third tribulation. That being said, he did not reveal too much of his abilities. He must be trying to buy some time so that Luli would misjudge his abilities. Luli's strategy was simple. He took out the cauldron of 1,000 transformations and turned it into a huge shield. Then, he pressed forward with the shield. Luli's physical body was strong and his strength was horrifying. Average warriors at the peak of the third tribulation would not be a match for him. Even though this man's comprehensive abilities were not at the initial stage of the third tribulation, Luli believed that he would not be a match for him in terms of physical strength. The Cauldron of 1,000 Transformations was a secret artifact, a powerful one at that. It had been nurtured by several generations of powerful warriors of the Yun family for hundreds of thousands of years. That being said, its energy was not too horrifying. After all, it was not a piece of imperial weapon or a piece of holy weapon. This secret artifact would not attract too many people's attention. Luli planned to use the relic weapon only as a last resort. Usually, he would use the Cauldron of 1,000 Transformations. Boom! The hook and the Cauldron of 1,000 Transformations bumped into each other. A strong force almost knocked the hook out of Wolf's hand. Luli was fast as well. Wolf was knocked away and smashed into the shield. Boom! Luli pushed the Cauldron of 1,000 Transformations to his back. A hook was knocked away, but it made an arc in the air and flew back to Wolf's hand. Whoosh! The wild wolf flew over again, but this time its expression was somewhat grave. It was not as casual as before. He could tell that Luli was quite capable. If he did not take this seriously, he might lose. Once he lost, Patriarch 2 would lose a lot of ice heart crystals. Wolf believed that his days would not be easy, so he must try his best. Hoi! Wolf broke through the air with his hook. The hook in his hand glowed and emitted divine might. His body was faintly discernible in midair. He must have learned a powerful spatial fundamental meaning. Boom! Luli took the cauldron of Wolf's stab. But the next second, Wolf disappeared in midair. Then a figure appeared behind Luli and stabbed at the back of Luli's head. 6th rank fundamental meaning, astral transformation. An old man outside cried out in alarm. His complexion became unsightly. Many people also began to curse loudly. Wolf had learned such a powerful fundamental meaning. Even though he was only at the initial stage of the third tribulation, his abilities could be compared to warriors at the peak of the third tribulation. Luli looked good, but how could he stand it? The astral transformation fundamental meaning was famous among the third realm. The fact that it was classified as a 6th rank fundamental meaning showed how powerful it was. The astral transformation fundamental meaning was a fusion of fundamental meaning. It could teleport continuously and attack continuously. At most, it could attack for tens of thousands of times in a row. Wolf's hook was a secret treasure. The shield in Lu Li's hand looked good, but could it stand the continuous attacks? Once the astral transformation fundamental meaning was released, the attacks would be continuous like surging waves, faster and faster, more brutal, boom, boom, boom. Next to Lu Li, the wolf kept flashing. Sometimes it would appear on the left, sometimes on the right, sometimes on the top. Dozens of hooks would stab at Lu Li almost every second. Lu Li kept changing his position with the cauldron of thousand transformation, enduring the wolf's attacks. Again and again, the hook and the shield formed by the cauldron of thousand transformation bumped into each other, creating sparks. "You are good." Lu Li nodded. If it were not for the fact that he had activated the mark of Tao, which made his senses dozens of times more sensitive, he might not be able to react. But if this was the extent of the wolf's skills, then he would lose for sure. P.S. Originally, there were 2 chapters today. I drank too much and was a bit dizzy, so I slacked off for a day. Chapter 2147. Boom, boom, boom. The wolf had attacked for over 100 times. Instead of resting, the wolf's attacks became more violent and more forceful. Lu Li was having an easy time. He was using the mark of Great Path to be more sensitive. As soon as the wolf appeared, he could sense it. He could wave the shield and stop the wolf's attacks. The shield was large and could cover one side. Therefore, the wolf's attacks seemed to be ever-changing. Actually, the wolf was defending from 5 directions. After over 100 attacks, Blood Fairy said, "Master, it is ready. Do you want to activate it?" The plaza was ready, but Lu Li did not want to activate it. After all, the wolf's attacks seemed to be ferocious but could not hurt him. There was no need to expose the plaza. Buzzing, Lu Li began to release worms. He quietly released hundreds of worms of the void from underground. When the wolf attacked again, Lu Li dashed forward and smashed at the wolf with the shield. Boom! The wolf was smashed away. At the same time, the worms of the void came out as well. The wolf had just been smashed out and the worms of the void were too fast. Before the wolf could react, hundreds of worms of the void had entered his body. Hoi! Wolf didn't mind the worms of the void at all. Instead, he seemed to be cruel. He suddenly disappeared on the spot and reappeared above Lu Li's head in the next second. Then, Lu Li was stunned by what happened. Boom! The wolf exploded, turning into a rain of blood that covered an area with a radius of 1,000 feet around Lu Li. The worms of the void that entered Lu Li's body had no target to devour. They could only fly around in the air. Self-destruct? Not like it. Lu Li used the mark of Great Path to check. Soon, he was taken aback. He noticed that the blood mist had formed a force field. From the force field came a surge of horrifying energy. Lu Li sensed fatal danger. What kind of skill is this? Lu Li's eyes flickered. He stepped back quickly. However, no matter how he moved, the blood mist around him moved with him. The blood mist began to writhe around him. Then, Lu Li's blood became restless. Sorcery. Lu Li was taken aback. The wild wolves must not have blown themselves up. They must have released some strange evil skill to suck all the blood in Lu Li's body. Lu Li wouldn't die after all the blood was sucked out, but he would be seriously injured. Then, he would be easily killed by the wild wolves. Bloodthirsty evil formation. An old man outside cried out in alarm, and a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. Many people also revealed looks of shock. They had all heard of this kind of evil art. It could suck the enemy's blood dry, and ordinary people did not know how to break it. I've lost all my ice heart crystals this time. Where did this wild wolf come from? He actually possesses such a terrifying evil art. I've been tricked by him. It's over, my 3,000 ice heart crystals are finished. The people outside were cursing and swearing. This time, many people had bet heavily on Luli. Seeing this, they were all angry. They felt like they had been cheated, but they were willing to accept the loss. They could only blame themselves for being blind. Will Luli be okay? Qin Zhan sent a message to Gan Lin. Gan Lin was not so sure. Gan Lin wasn't so sure either. He thought about it and said, "Trust Luli. He has more battle experience than us. He hasn't used his skills yet." Blood Fairy used the Field of Runes. Luli dashed back to where he was and told Blood Fairy to use the Field of Runes. He believed that even though the wild wolf was using evil art, he would not turn into a mist. He must be hiding in the air. As long as he could suppress his divine energy, the wild wolf would not be able to use his evil art. By then, it would be easier to deal with him. Buzzing, space began to tremble. Blood Fairy's Field of Runes was activated. This Field of Runes was released at the same time, suppressing divine energy and attacking the soul at the same time. An invisible force field came out and covered up the entire space. What surprised Luli was that the wild wolf did not come out. The mist of blood had been shrouding him. He could no longer suppress his blood, and it began to ooze out from his pores. "Don't panic." Luli forced himself to calm down. The wild wolf could not turn into a mist of blood. A human was made of flesh and blood. How could he disappear? Even the most powerful evil art could not turn himself into a mist of blood and then come back. Buzzing, Luli took out the bead of ghost. The bead glowed and a ghost came out. The bead of ghosts was not of much use. Only this ghost was impressive. Luli controlled the ghost to search for nearby creatures. Ghost Shadow was an incorporeal body, so it was very sensitive to living beings hiding in the void. The ghostly figure whooshed by and then vanished. Luli's eyes glowed. He aimed at a direction and punched at it. Boom! The void trembled. A bead came out from the void. Then, a man emerged in midair. Luli could no longer conserve his strength. He punched at the wild wolf. Boom! The wild wolf was smashed away. There were sounds of bones cracking. The wild wolf cried out in pain. Blood sprayed out from his pores. At the same time, Luli's blood was sucked out as well. The wild wolf sneered, "God of massacre, give up or you will die a miserable death." "Is that so?" Luli sneered. Many worms of the void and the Goo King flew out from his body toward the wild wolf. At the same time, Luli dashed forward and used his body to resist the wild wolf's hook. Luli punched at the wolf. A life for a life. Luli's body was strong and he was full of energy. It was okay for him to lose some blood. He didn't believe that the wild wolf could survive his attack. The wild wolf was stunned to realize that its hook could only cut open Luli's skin and flesh. It couldn't even break Luli's bones. What? People outside were in an uproar. The hook was clearly a piece of treasure. How strong was Luli's body? Many people's eyes glowed. If Luli could win, then so could they. They had thought that they were doomed to lose. But now they could make a fortune. They felt they had gone from hell to heaven. Boom, boom, boom. Luli kept on attacking and the wild wolf kept on stabbing. Both of them felt they were fighting with their lives. It was a matter of which one would die first. Of course, anyone with discerning eyes could tell that Luli was in a much better state than the wild wolf. There were several holes on the wolf's body. If Luli kept on, he would die. God of massacre. Right at that moment, a voice suddenly came to Luli's mind. It was a strange man's voice. "You give up this fight. You bet 15,000 ice heart crystals and I will pay you 20,000. How about that?" The dealer finally showed up, but Luli didn't want to cooperate with the dealer. Their ice heart crystals were enough for him to win this fight. He didn't want to fake it. What was more, the situation was so obvious. If he gave up, people outside would hate him. Therefore, he punched again, looked at the wild wolf and said, "Give up or die." Chapter 2148. Wolf looked into Luli's cold eyes. He knew that if he didn't surrender, Luli wouldn't mind sending him to hell. Clearly, Luli's hands were stained with blood and he was used to life and death. Wolf couldn't kill Luli. If this went on, he would be killed by Luli. Wolf had strong defense, but he couldn't stand Luli's attacks. His bloodthirst formation was powerful, but Luli's body was too strong. Wolf couldn't outlast Luli. Boom! Luli punched at his head again. Wolf's eyes were blurred. He bit his teeth and shouted, "I give up!" His voice was so loud that people outside heard it. There was no turning back now. The steward outside shouted, "The duel is over. God of Massacre Lu wins." Good! Cheers came from outside. Many people were overjoyed. They thought Luli was going to lose for sure. Now, the tables had turned. This was a pleasant surprise. Many people looked at Luli with gentleness. They liked people who could help them earn ice heart crystals. Qin Zhan and Gan Lin were happy. They could leave the Ice Valley after winning 15,000 ice heart crystals. Luli didn't show much joy on his face. Just now, the dealer told him to give up. He didn't, which offended the dealer. It was said that the dealer had connections with people of the Ice Valley. There shouldn't be any trouble for the three of them to leave the valley, but they might be hunted down. Luli sat down with his legs crossed after he walked out of the shield. He took some healing pellet. He was injured, but nobody dared to touch him under the watchful eyes of the public. Naturally, he wanted to recover first. The dealer didn't dare to cheat Qin Zhan's bet. After all, there were so many people watching. They needed credibility. Without credibility, nobody would have the guts to gamble in the future. "Luli, are you okay?" Qin Zhan and the others walked over with the ice heart crystals. Luli waved his hand and asked them to wait. They were not in a hurry, so they just sat there. Luli cultivated for 4 hours. Several more people went up to fight. Luli himself only suffered some superficial wounds and lost some blood. He recovered more than half after a while. Not a single one of their bones was broken, and they had already turned into hard black bones. It was very difficult for ordinary attacks to break them. He took out some water to wipe his face and waved his hand. "Let's go." Gan Lin and Gan Lin followed Luli to the outside. As soon as they reached the door, Luli squinted his eyes because there were people at the door. 2 men in black were standing there, clearly waiting for them. "Death God Lu, my second master invites you over," a man in black said. His actions and words were polite. It seemed that he was here to invite Luli as a guest. However, since the other party had sent 2 people, it was obvious that they were threatening him. Otherwise, only one person would have been needed. Humph. After Qin Zhan left the second layer of heaven, he let loose a bit. He snorted heavily as killing intent soared from his body. He coldly shouted, "If we don't go, are you going to force us?" Luli waved his hand and said, "Qin Zhan, wait a moment. I will go and see Master too." Luli. Qin Zhan was getting anxious. What if something happened to Luli by himself? Luli waved his hand in an overbearing manner and said to the man in black, "Lead the way." The man in black led Luli to a corridor on the side. Finally, they entered a side chamber where Luli met the so-called Master Tu. Master Tu was tall and sturdy. He wore a black robe and sat on a lion chair like a coiled dragon. He stared at Luli with a ferocious look. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or angry. However, he didn't smile at all when facing a guest, which indicated that he was dissatisfied. Fourth Tribulation Realm. Luli sensed this old man's chi and energy was profound. Clearly, this old man was a powerful warrior. Luli thought about it, cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, Master Tu. Death God Lu, right?" Master Tu held two huge walnuts in his hands and kept turning them. His eyes were rolling as well, but he didn't say anything. He just stared at Luli, releasing a kind of invisible pressure. Luli waited for a while. Seeing that Master Tu had no intention to talk, Luli cupped his fists and said, "Master Tu, if there is nothing else, I will leave now." "How dare you?" The man in black standing next to Master Tu was furious. He scolded, "Nobody in the ice-ceiling valley dares to be so rude to Master Tu." "Really?" Luli smiled lightly and said, "Politeness is mutual. I have always been like this. If people respect me, I will respect them back." Luli didn't finish his words, but his meaning was clear. Luli was not satisfied with old Master Tu's attitude. If old Master Tu still behaved like this, then they would fall out with each other. Not bad. A faint smile appeared on Second Master's face, and the black-clothed man beside him shrank back. He knew that Second Master's smile was a sign that he was furious. Patriarch Tu looked at Luli and said, "Young man, it is good to have drive. But this is the third heaven, not your universe." Luli smiled lightly and said in a tit-for-tat manner, "Young people are young people because they have drive. If they don't have the drive, then what kind of young man are they? Second Master, when you were young, you probably had more drive than me, right?" "Interesting." Old Tu twirled the walnut in his hand, muttered to himself for a moment and said, "You made me lose hundreds of thousands of ice heart crystals in that match just now, so I won't beat around the bush. Help me fight 3 matches, and I'll give you 30,000 ice heart crystals, or convert them into divine stones. How about it?" 3 matches? Luli frowned. He thought about it and said, "Do I win or lose 3 matches?" "Lose." Patriarch Tu gave his answer and added, "I will not let you lose too badly, nor will I let you be seriously injured. How about that?" "If I win, I can fight." Luli answered without any hesitation, "How you arrange it is up to you. I just want to win." Luli was not comfortable with fake fights. If he lost, he would be hated by many people. Who could tell who was among the people who bet on the fights? If he was targeted, he would be in a lot of trouble. Gamblers would vent their anger on the people they bet on when they lost. It would be fine if he won. But if he lost, they would hate him. Luli didn't want to take the risk just for 30,000 ice heart crystals. Luli didn't want the ice heart crystals because he couldn't take them out. Luli planned to convert them into divine stones. After they left the ice-ceiling valley, they would have to spend money to go out. Many cities required divine stones to go in. Sure. Patriarch Tu frowned and agreed to Luli's terms. But he added, "Time is of the essence. Tomorrow you go and fight. I will arrange for you a famous warrior at the peak of the third tribulation. Use all your skills and win beautifully. Don't let anyone see anything wrong." "Okay." Luli nodded with satisfaction. He extended his hand and said, "Can I have 10,000 divine stones in advance?" Patriarch Tu waved his hand. The man in black took out an interspatial ring. Luli took it over and walked out. Qin Zhan and Patriarch Tu were relieved to see Luli back. Luli was the backbone of the two. If something happened to Luli, they wouldn't know what to do. "Let's go back first." Luli said nothing. He brought the two back to the cave. He told them what he just said to Patriarch Tu. Then he threw the 10,000 divine stones to Qin Zhan and said, "Qin Zhan, I need to heal. Take this 10,000 divine stones and go find out some information. We will leave as soon as we finish the 3 matches and get as far away from the ice-ceiling valley as possible." Chapter 2149. Luli went back and rested for a day before he went on stage again. Patriarch Tu had made a good arrangement. He sent a famous warrior who was often in the arena. He was known to be invincible in defense. He had a fundamental principle of Earth. When he released it, there would be a yellowish halo around him. The halo would pulsate in sync with the pulse of the Earth. The fundamental principle of Earth was integrated with the Earth. With the help of the strength of the Earth, his defense was strong. This man had been on the arena for more than 30 times. He never lost unless he encountered a warrior of the fourth tribulation. Relying on his strong defense, he would wear out his enemies slowly. His attacks were not sharp, but they could corrode the divine energy of his enemies. The longer the fight went on, the more dangerous it would be. Toward the end, when the divine energy was almost gone, how could one fight with him? Luli was just putting on a show, so he felt no pressure. Before he went on stage, Patriarch Tu sent someone to tell Luli about this man. Luli was confident that this fight would not be difficult. Tianjin, please. A short and strong man went on stage. Luli was looking forward to this fight after hearing about his skills. It would be helpful for him to see some powerful fundamental principle of Lu. God of Massacre. Luli cupped his fist. He had decided to use the name God of Massacre from now on. It was imposing and not eye-catching. There were many people calling him God of Massacre, Demon, God of God. There were thousands of people outside. Their eyes glowed when they saw Luli. But when they saw that his opponent was Tianjin, nobody looked at Luli anymore. They were all too familiar with Tianjin's abilities. His defense was almost invincible below the third tribulation realm. So far, nobody had seen how Tianjin could crack his defense. Luli was only at the second tribulation realm. His comprehensive abilities were good, but he could only be compared to the peak of the third tribulation. He should not be able to crack Tianjin's defense. Luli and Tianjin began after they cupped their fists. Either way, it would not be an easy fight. The people outside had more than enough time to place their bet. As long as the winner was not decided and there were no obvious signs of defeat, the dealer would accept bets. This was a chance for the gamblers to observe the abilities of the two. That being said, neither of them would resort to killing moves until the very last moment. Anything could happen. The odds for Luli were 1-2 and Tianjin were 2-1. But as Patriarch Tu had expected, almost all the people were betting on Tianjin. Everyone knew about Tianjin's record. He won more than he lost. Luli should not be able to crack his defense. Tianjin released his defense true intent, and a khaki-colored halo enveloped him. His entire body couldn't be seen, and all that could be seen was a khaki-colored figure. After Tianjin released the circle of light, he did not move. He just stood there, holding a Vajra scepter in his hand. The circle of light expanded and contracted, making him look like a Buddha. Ha! Using the happy steps, Luli flew up and smashed at Tianjin's head with his fists, whistling in the wind. Tianjin didn't move, allowing Luli to do as he pleased. He swung his King Kong Vajra at Luli's legs. Boom! With a muffled sound, the yellowish halo began to tremble. Luli felt as if he had punched into water. His fists sank several inches into the halo and could not go any further. Bang! Tianjin's King Kong pestle swept over. Luli felt a pain in his legs and he was knocked away. The force wasn't strong, but he could feel a thread of strange energy flowing into his meridians. This punch was not particularly strong, so it did not cause Luli much harm. That being said, the energy penetrated into his meridians like toxins and began to corrode his divine energy. The energy was mild and it hid deep inside his meridians, mixing with divine energy. If it were not for the fact that Patriarch Tu had sent someone to tell Luli, he would not have cared. Usually, when fighting against Tianjin, warriors would not pay much attention to what was going on inside their bodies. They would just keep on attacking Tianjin. In the end, when more than half of the divine energy was corroded, they would be alerted. By then, there would be nothing they could do. Hoi! Luli was not concerned about his divine energy being corroded. He flew up and continued to attack Tianjin. His fists kept on landing on Tianjin. However, he could not inflict any harm on Tianjin. Instead, he was smashed away by Tianjin's King Kong Vajra again and again. Everyone who saw this placed their bets on Tianjin. In the past, Tianjin's opponents would always attack like this, and they would all end up losing miserably. Blood Fairy, can you build a plaza of divine runes? The one that looks glamorous and powerful but does not have much power? Lu Li communicated with Blood Fairy. Patriarch Tu had told him that he must win with grace. Tianjin worked for Patriarch Tu. Therefore, it was an easy win for Lu Li. Now, it all came down to how well he could win. He had to convince the gamblers that he had won with his abilities. He could not let them see anything wrong. That's easy. Blood Fairy had been studying divine runes for many years. It was a piece of cake for her to build one. She snuck out from Lu Li's body and went underground. Usually, when Blood Fairy came out from Lu Li's body, no one would see her. However, this time, Lu Li had Blood Fairy expose herself on purpose. He did not let Tianjin see her, but the gamblers outside. What? Someone outside saw Blood Fairy and knew that she was a kind of goblin. Unfortunately, psychic power could not reach underground. Therefore, when Blood Fairy went underground, the gamblers outside were not so sure. Buzzing. Lu Li released the worms of the void again. This time, he did not go underground. Instead, he released them outside in a showy manner. He even let out the dark golden worms of the void. The shield was filled with worms of the void. It was a frightening sight. The worms of the void could become intangible and could pierce through Tianjin's shield to enter his body. As the worms of the void disappeared into Tianjin's body, many gamblers outside were taken aback. So many worms had entered Tianjin's body. Even if one worm took a bite out of Tianjin's body would be gone. If Tianjin lost, they would lose. Buzzing, inside the shield, there was suddenly a white mist. In the white mist, flames rose to the sky. There seemed to be some thunderbolts moving around in the mist. There were also some earthy yellow dragons coming out from the ground. It was a frightening sight. Blood Fairy's Divine Rune Plaza was activated. This Divine Rune Plaza was actually a formation of illusion. It looked scary, but it was harmless. However, those on the outside could not use their psychic power in. Therefore, it looked scary and people would think that this was some kind of powerful move. Lu Li moved in and out. Every now and then, they would hear Lu Li's shout. Even though Lu Li would be smashed away every now and then, people could tell that he was confident that he would win. Because of the white mist, people could not see Tianjin's face clearly. Every now and then, they would hear Tianjin's muffled groans and muffled cries of pain. Bit by bit, Lu Li and Tianjin's acting had convinced those outside that Lu Li had powerful means and that Tianjin was going to lose. Buzzing, after another hour, Lu Li shouted, "Tianjin, admit defeat or you will die." "I admit defeat." Tianjin shouted, unwilling to admit defeat. Then, the white mist disappeared. Everyone could see what was inside the shield. Tianjin's shield was broken. He was in a miserable state. One of his hands was reduced to bones and half of his leg was exposed. Many worms were wriggling and gnawing on the bones. Good. Patriarch Tu stood at the door of the side chamber. He nodded when he saw this. He said something to the black-robed man next to him and went in. Arrange for Lu Li to fight another round as soon as possible. For the last round, send God of Hawk and finish him. Finish him. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.